why you do that. Away from that, a clash of priorities is simmering in the country. And of course, this with allies to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga crying foul. They say they sabotage on the handshake or of the handshake about 3 years into it. Senator Orengo claims that high-ranking government officials are undermining the handshake. They have threatened to call it quits if the government officials will not be told off. Now, we look at that and much more on the matters of politics, but also we do not forget, yes, to celebrate the women out there in this special day. And we'll be having powerful women as we discuss the progress and what drags us behind. Yes, what drags us behind. How many times have we talked about how best we can empower the girl child, push it to another level, ensure that, we find ourselves spaces, inclusivity, talk of finding ourselves, spaces on matters politics, on matters leadership. Yet sometimes we find ourselves not reaching our goals. Of course, the most common one right here in the country, the two-third gender rule, and just how we can work around things to ensure that even as we speak of empowering the girl child, the boy child is not left behind. Karibu sana, this is Morning Cafe. My name is Linda Alela. Beautiful Monday as we look forward to an incredible an incredible week ahead. Karibu sana. It's good to interact with us. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV47KE. Remember, we said we are opening the platform for you to celebrate this woman that you think is worth celebrating this morning. As we say, kudos to all the mothers out there. So let's kickstart the broadcast. Yes, the broadcast begins right now as we look at what has been captured. And here we are. And as always, we have the dailies. We look at the newspapers. It's important that we look at what it is that has been captured in the papers. Of course, the story of what has played out in terms of politics throughout the weekend. Importantly, celebrating the women out there. And so as we take a look at this, it is important that we get into that. I am surprised that this is not opening yet. We're here. Just a second. All right. We might have to cast it afresh. Yes, worry not. I got you covered. Yes, the newspapers, speaking of, well, the handshake, the shaky handshake, so to speak. And here we are. Yes. Good. Tall enough. Yes. All right. So we have the Standard newspaper, the People Daily, and the Daily Nation. Briefly look at what it is that has been captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Uhuru's night call that calmed Raila. Calmed on what? Well, ODM leader Raila Odinga has had planned to go back to Kibra bedroom to discuss matters BBI. And as it was sent to the newsrooms, or that statement that was there to invite the newsrooms in regards to that, well, it was circulating, and we all expected that Right Honorable Raila Odinga would be there. But a call from from the president and also the advisors, or the president to his advisors, got these plans frozen, or so to speak. And on the eve of its third anniversary, the pact may require more than just a call. That is a story that has been captured on page 4 and 5. We extensively look at what is of the handshake this morning, even as these conversations of it being in trouble are rife. And so we'll be discussing that alongside my panelists, just to get to hear their views and their feel in regards to the same. They say countdown to flare up. And yes, we look in depth as to what exactly this means and whether these really could be genuine or not. But away from it, professionals making career out of dowry negotiations. That's an interesting one. Yes, those oldies who are known for that, and so they go out there to discuss on behalf of the parents, ensure that they get enough or good money out of the suitors in regards to this. And so it's an interesting one. Nice piece that is worth reading. Different story revealed teachers to get better salaries under CBC. Will this be one thing that will make them celebrate or appreciate this move? Good tidings. New job evaluation finally recognizes the big role class teachers are playing in CBC rollout, and so setting the stage for higher pay. That is in July, when their current 54 billion pay deal lapses, and of course the previous evaluation favored head teachers. That's a story captured on page 2. You get intense, or you extensively get to look into that as we proceed. COVID-19, 1 year on, how Africa was spared the grim projections. A story captured on page 6 and 8. We're talking this at a point where the vaccine has gotten into the country, something that has been celebrated so far. To the Daily Nation, Mudavadi Moi factor in a 2022 plot. One of the key figures that have been looked at as people who are being fronted and maybe are the biggest threat to the handshake as at now. So succession politics. ODM leader Raila Odinga's allies have alleged a plan by state operatives to scuttle the handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta by supporting the ANC or KANU leader for the presidency in next year's general election. A story captured on page 4. We look at that extensively alongside my panelists. One of the key figures that have been, put on the spot is Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibichu. And of course, he's at the center of this particular political storm, with ODM asking President Kenyatta to exclude him from the Building Bridges Initiative campaigns. And so the party says Dr. Kibichu has established a parallel command, or a command base using the civil servants to popularize the initiative. There are fears of a plot to abandon ODM leader Raila Odinga. We discuss that later on. What grade 4 test looks like, and the Pioneer grade 4 class and the new school curriculum is set to begin the first ever formative assessment today, marking the beginning of the end of Standard 8 national exams under the competency-based curriculum. The test to be administered, marked and graded by teachers will hugely contribute about 20% to their final score at the end of a primary school. We'll be looking at this as we proceed. We need to get someone on board, like we've always promised, who's well conversant with matters CBC, so they can guide us through in understanding this. A story captured on page 8. Away from it, sad one right here. Murder, why the mystery has deepened. Did Kevin Kimayo kill his lover Charity Cheboy and Hassan Alan before taking his life? There are still many unanswered questions in regards to this. A story captured on page 10 and 12. This one is a murder. Remember that story where the father of this child, in a way, who were divorced with the mother, was worried that the child was not going to school, got into this place and realized that they had died inside their house alongside the lover of the mother. Quite a twist and turn right there as the investigative bodies continue to try and establish what could have informed that. Big story also right here on Matters Politics. Blow to Raila as Kaya elders support Joho Kingi push for Coast Political Party. That's a story that has been captured on page 5 of the Daily Nation at a time when the Right Honorable Raila Odinga concluded his coast tour, trying to talk to the people of the coast, telling them it is not fair or it is not wise for them to have a political party that is just for the coast, because this would go or would come in, as a way of trying to segregate them from the rest of the country. And pain of rising fuel prices, high prices hurt homes and businesses after knocks of COVID-19. A story captured on the back page. Equally on Matters Electricity, the prices going up, getting people a bit worried on just what way forward at a time when we still continue to grapple with tough times on Matters Economy. And to the People Daily, women who stood out in addressing COVID challenges in their special way of celebrating the women today on this international day, or in this international celebrations for the women. A story captured on page 8 and 9. BBI unity test as Raila allies cry sabotage. ODM leader leaves supporters guessing after skipping city rally at which major announcement was expected after key party leaders accused powerful PS of betrayal. That is a story captured on page 4. Kibichu stranger to controversy. Well, that's an interesting conversation worth having, and that's exactly what we'll be having this morning as Junet Mohammed, who is part of the Secretariat, argues if he must continue meddling in the work of the Secretariat, then he argues that they, as ODM, will be left with no choice but to abandon the BBI. On the other hand, Dennis Waweru says he is not aware of anything, and he says if there are any concerns, we are going to discuss and come up with a solution and a way forward. Counties to roll out COVID vaccination as stocks arrive into the respective counties. A story captured on page 7. Well, after that release of the vaccine into the country, and then officially this has to proceed to the counties. Remember, the key people that have been considered as one or as a lot that should be getting these vaccines first, the medics, that is the frontline workers, well, government officials, equally very important, on matter security also, and a couple of people who have, pre-existing conditions also have been considered to be, the people who should be getting this, about 1.2 million vaccines that landed into the country. Already we've seen different officials or a couple of officials having gotten that. Just are in court after dramatic Mia's arrest, 2 nights in cells. We also discussed the intolerance that we have witnessed on matters politics, that is during the by-election, even as we still have others, that lie ahead. The senatorial position of Machakos County, equally that one of Garissa, alongside that is the constituency elections that we're expecting. That is in Bonchari, and also on this other side of Juja. We'll be looking at that, even as the IEBC has already declared that these individuals who wish to front their interest in regards to, going it for these particular races, it is important that they proceed to ensure that they have declared their interest latest. They say political parties have until today to furnish the commission with candidates intending to vie in the upcoming by-election slated for May the 18th. And so we'll be looking at that as we proceed. And like we said earlier on, Muturi outwits Munya for Mount Kenya East spokesperson after coronation. What does it mean? What is the significance of this, especially when we're talking matters 2022 politics? And so we'll be discussing all this as we proceed with the broadcast. We expect to have our guest this morning, the DG for Kisii County, Honorable Joash Mangi. We also expect to have a communications advisor, Barak Muluka, and the speaker for Nyeri County, that is Nunkagushia. They will be joining us for this conversation this morning. So make sure that you keep it right here, even as you keep sending those comments. We'll get to sample them as we proceed with the broadcast. Briefly to what is happening on the roads. It's a Monday morning. Sometimes Monday mornings cannot be so rosy, and it is only fair that we update you accordingly as to what it is that is happening. I always start with the red slots, or the heavy spotted in terms of traffic, and this is Thika Road. Well, all the way from Githurai, you find there's some tenets of traffic as you're headed to town, evidently not looking so good this Monday morning, and so it proceeds all the way down. It is heavy around Safari Park going down to those sides of Garden City. It does not look so good this morning until it gets to that point where you're headed to the roundabout. This is drive-in, and then it eases down a bit, but then again comes to this point where Mathare National Hospital, Mental Hospital, is around. That is around Muthaiga. The traffic is heavy again as you get yourself into the city somewhere around Pangani here. It is quite heavy, making it also a bit hard for these people who are coming from Kiambu Road. A bit of traffic down there as you get to connect to Thika Road, but on this side of Muthaiga, it's not looking so bad around Gertrude's Hospital. Well, the roads are not as bad because most of the times you'll not find matatus taking that direction. And going down to a different direction altogether, let's see how it looks like. Ngara West not looking so bad this morning, and so if you're taking that direction, you do not have to worry. Muranga Road is also not bad. This is Kipandi Road, equally not looking as bad, taking us up here somewhere around Parklands. Let's see how it looks like where we are. Parklands, Westlands. Parklands is not bad this morning. Those sides as you headed to MP Shah, it is evidently looking good. This side of the Museum Road is also not as bad this morning. Going down to this side of Anniversary Towers as you get into the city, it is not bad. State House Road right here is also not looking bad, and so there's no cause for alarm. Let's look at this other side and see where else there is a cause for alarm. This is Waiyaki Way. Waiyaki Way is not as bad this morning, apart from some bits where you get some level of traffic, but then it is not looking so ugly. And so when you get to this side of ABC Place, This, coming up there from the sides of Kichishuri doesn't look bad, but going down to James Gishuru is equally not bad this morning. So the James Gishuru Road is pretty much of an ease, and dropping us to around Gitanga Road. Gitanga Road, as you're headed to Kawangware, in most cases you'd find that there would be a lot of traffic because the roads were extremely bad, but this morning it is not looking so ugly around Gitanga Road. As you proceed to Kawangware, dropping at Ngong Road, well, this is Ngong Road. Ngong Road equally does not look so bad to and from town this morning, and so those people who are taking Ngong Road have no reason to be worried at all. Let's look at what is happening down there as you get to Mombasa Road. Well, from Mombasa Road, as you headed to town, as always, you will find some level of traffic from these sides of Cabanas. This is Syokimau Gateway Mall. Traffic is there. It's quite heavy around Cabanas, bus stop, all this, because then you get to connect from the Airport Road and Bakasi, those sides, which actually doesn't look so bad. That is the bypass, the eastern bypass, not so bad. Airport Road, as you come and fall into Mombasa Road, is when you find some tenets of heavy traffic. Imara Daima is a bit trafficked, and going all the way down to these sides of Bellevue, yes, the traffic is not looking so good. And then you drop at around Nyayo Stadium. Nyayo Stadium also, the roundabout, as you get to connect to Lusaka, the likes of Langata, as you headed to Langata, is not as bad this morning as you headed into the city. And so if you're taking that direction, you know what it is that you expect. Southern Bypass is a bit all rosy, as you can see right here. And as much as it connects to Mombasa Road, where it's not looking so good, the Southern Bypass is pretty much of an ease this morning, and therefore you need not to worry. In the event there's anything else that we'd probably need to update you on, will be here in regards to the road. I can see Juja Road is not as bad, though there's some tenets of traffic somewhere around the Moi Airbase. So if you're taking Juja Road, you know what it is that you expect this morning. And this is Outer Ring Road. Outer Ring Road is not looking as bad this morning. Going down up until you get to these sides of Donholm is where you experience a bit of traffic around Feather Estate and all that. And also Manyanja Road, there's some level of traffic down there, but it is not as bad. And so if you're taking all those directions, there you go. At least you are updated in regards to what to expect on the roads. As always, it's my pleasure to keep you up to tabs on that. And before we look at what it is that we expect in the course of the day, let's first look at what my team has prepared. As President Uhuru Kenyatta was hosted by former Kiambu Governor William Kafogo, and meanwhile, KANU Chairman and Baringo Senator Gideon Moi took BBI politics to Kiambu County, drumming up support for a referendum, as Mwangi Minor reports.
The meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and the former Kiambu County boss comes days after Kabogo announced his change of tune in the BBI politics. Kabogo now leading a campaign to drum up support for the bill in the Mount Kenya region. Meanwhile, at the African Independent Church of Kenya, AIPCK in Githunguri, Baringo Senator Gideon Moi, accompanied by other leaders, called on residents of Kiambu to read the Constitution Amendment Bill and vote overwhelmingly when time comes to amend the Constitution.
Assemblies wamefanya kazi yao. Umesikia wajumbe wamesema itafika kwao, watafanya yao. Alafu half time inaingia. Half time ni watu wanatoka, wananchi wanaingia. Sasa ndio ni kazi ya wananchi kucheza mpira. Na umesikia hiyo vitu itafika nyumbani, si nyinyi tasoma. Si ndio?
Moi, who has expressed his interest in succeeding President Uhuru Kenyatta, said the BBI bill will see more resources allocated to counties as well as increased representation, sentiments echoed by Kiambu Governor James Nyoro.
Na representation kubwa, tuwe na MP wengine watatu huko, mwingine akuja upande wa katikati ya Limuru na Rali, mwingine aende upande wa Kiambaa. Kwa hivyo hii maneno yote tutaangalia na tutaongea, kwa sababu sisi ni watu werefu.
Diati Member of Parliament William Kamket drummed up support for Moi's presidency and called on Kiambu residents to stand with him. Starehe Member of Parliament Charles Kanyijagwa chided members of ODM who have been complaining of Raila being shortchanged in the handshake between him and President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Gari ya moshi ambayo ilianzia hapa Kiambu, hiyo gari ya moshi ya kando, sisi tumenunulia nchi mpya, tumenunulia maneno yake yote mpya. Sasa hiyo gari ya moshi nataka nyinyi watu wa Kiambu mkuje msukume kwa sababu ni yenu.
Nataka niombe watu wa ODM, kama uliingia kwa harusi, wewe ngoja mpaka kifo, kwa sababu waliingia wasupport rais, wasianze kuyumba. Na mimi nataka niambie rais leo achague marafiki ambao ni wa ukweli.
The leader spoke during the ordination ceremony of Paul Jenga as the AIPCK Bishop in Githunguri. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
ODM leaders led by Nairobi branch chair George Aladwa led the BBI campaigns in Kibra amidst claims of issues threatening the handshake between their party leader and President Kenyatta. Raila, who was expected to lead the campaigns, did not attend the rally.
BBI.
Mpe dakika zake zile anaweza ongea kuongea mpaka saa 8.
Akisimama anasema ule mtu wa kitandawili. Nataka kumueleza kitu kimoja. Kabla wazungu wakuje Afrika, kabla tupewe vitabu, kabla tupewe lugha, wazee wetu walikuwa wanatufundisha na vitandawili. Juzi akasema tena huyo watermelon. Sasa wewe ni deputy president. Kalonzo Musyoka alikuwa nini? Vice president. You're on the same level. Sasa ukisimama hapo unamuita watermelon, unasema nini? Kuwa na heshima with your fellow leaders.
Baba alienda Manyani miaka 1 na mwezi 7. Mnaandika chini. Baba akaenda mpaka industrial area prison kule ambapo mimi pia nilikuwa. Alafu wewe ukapo unasema wewe ni hustler na hujawahi shikwa hata na mtu wa kanjo. Ruto, wacha upuzi.
Wakiomba kiti ya presidential candidate mtu mmoja, Raila Amolo Odinga. Wale wanaunga mtu mwingine mkono ndani ya chama yetu waendelee, lakini wajue siku ya mwisho candidate wetu ni Raila Amolo Odinga. Huo ndio mtu tutapeleka kwa harusi akaombe huko mambo yake, na sisi tunamuunga mkono.
MCA ambaye anapiga kura ya la ni kiongozi ambaye hatumii kichwa, na tunakemea zile MCAs wale walipiga no katika counties 3. Tunawaambia hamstahili kuongoza wananchi. Raila Amolo Odinga na Uhuru Kenyatta wameshikana kwa sababu ya BBI na mambo ya handshake. We are here to ensure that ile safari walianza ya BBI itafika mwisho.
Deputy President William Ruto concluded his 3-day tour of Meru County, accusing section of politicians of using the police to intimidate competitors. His visit to the region coming days after a National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi was installed as the region's spokesperson.
Deputy President William Ruto spent the better part of today owing Meru residents to support his 2022 presidential bid. Ruto accused section of politicians of using the police department to intimidate their competitors.
Na mimi nataka niseme ya kwamba askari wetu wa polisi must not abdicate their responsibility to politicians and to political brokers. We want to make sure that this country is democratic and every citizen elects the person of their choice.
Violence undermines democracy. Na tungeomba tafadhali sisi viongozi tuache kuelekea hiyo direction. Na kama ni sheria sheria itumiwe, to cut both the ways, irrespective of the political divide. Kama mtu amefanya makosa, amefanya makosa.
Siasa. Museme hamutaongea mambo ya siasa. Ni kupeana nafasi nyinyi watu wa Mungu na wazuri na mmesoma na mko na akili kuongozwa na wajinga na watu ambao wako na madhambi na maovu.
The deputy president has also defended himself over accusations of giving false promises during the 2013 and the 2017 political campaigns.
Wala wanatuuliza maswali ati itafanyika namna gani? Serikali ya Uhuru Kenyatta na mimi ndio tumejenga reli. Ndio tumejenga barabara kilomita 7,000. Ndio tumeunganisha stima watu 500,000. Tumejenga technical training 140. Sasa mnaniambia watu warujine? Kama tumefanya hiyo kazi yote, pesa kutafutia pesa hawa mahasla wafanye biashara ndio itatushinda.
Ruto spoke while attending the installation ceremony of Kag Synod Bishop Reverend Nicholas Ntere at the Methodist Church of Kenya in Meru County. The DP has been sending mixed signals on the ongoing constitutional amendment debate, with his allies opposing the amendments.
And to what will form the basis of our conversation this morning, the infamous handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga stirred the calm political waters, breaking what was Kenya's once admired bromance between President Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. But with the handshake and the BBI being rumored to be just another political vehicle that is to keep the country together, the bill favors an unlikely candidate. If he wins the presidential elections, then the bill allows Ruto to reward his cronies. If he loses, he becomes a powerful official leader of opposition with a shadow cabinet and everything else that comes with power. So, on Matters 2022 game plan, we take a look at the BBI winners and losers.
It was a historic moment for Kenya on the 9th of March 2018 as the then political force President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga shook hands to form what came to be known as the handshake, which gave birth to the BBI Constitutional Amendment Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
But with the bill past the county assemblies waiting for the Senate and the National Assembly to give the green light before Kenyans can vote on the bill, the much expected referendum has opened the floodgates for the 2022 pre-election deals.
If and once the BBI goes through, the political environment is going to change completely. We are going to see tectonic shifts.
As much as citizens are going to try and understand what this BBI has changed in terms of elections, the political leaders and those who are seeking elective seats are actually going to start preparing for 2022 earlier than we thought.
But Kenyatta's grip on the handshake is slowly weakening as Kenyatta is believed to have settled on his successor, although unofficial, judging by pronouncements made by Odinga's close allies. Politicians allied to DP Ruto, who faced the wrath of Jubilee's power wrangles, now asking ODM to mourn their fallout with Kenyatta silently, as it was long overdue.
And we know what these characters are trying to do to determine who becomes president in the year 2022. Those characters are undermining the authority and the goodwill and the vision of Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga.
Ukiona shule anaruka kutoka kwa maji, akwambie iko joto, ujue iko joto. You cannot doubt what Orengo and Junet are saying about the handshake.
I want to advise our brothers in ODM that do not take us back to those street battles. If you feel that something has not gone right, do not mourn more than the bereaved. Do not feel that you have been betrayed by Jubilee more than us who voted for Jubilee. Please stick to peaceful negotiations. The handshake was done in silence. Even the parting, if it is there, should be done in silence.
But the BBI bill has given rise to a new government outlook, introducing the office of the Prime Minister and 2 deputies, as well as the office of the official opposition, to offer regional balancing and sharing the national cake. Although Deputy President William Ruto, who has since fallen out with President Kenyatta, has confirmed he will not lead a no campaign in the referendum, Ruto is likely to be the biggest beneficiary of the bill if it sails through, with his reluctance to oppose the push for constitutional amendment attributed to his role as a number 2 to President Kenyatta, who has sponsored the bill alongside his handshake partner Raila Odinga.
Now the enemy of your enemy is your friend. So if Raila becomes the enemy of Uhuru, and Uhuru also has Ruto as his enemy, they have enough basis to get together and forget about the things they have been saying about one another.
If the Building Bridges initiative passes, the person who stands to win the most is actually His Excellency William Ruto, because with the creation of these new offices such as the Deputy Prime Minister, the Prime Minister and the 2 deputies and the official office of the opposition, in the event that William Ruto loses to whoever will be on the ballot, then what the Building Bridges initiative does is it actually it's giving him a secure landing spot in form of the office of the official opposition.
With the prospect of joining hands with Odinga to take over State House next year, the constitutional amendment gives Ruto the luxury to award his cronies in his quest to woo more regions in his 2022 presidential ambitions.
But in the event that William Ruto actually wins the 2022 presidential election, then it also gives him a chance to, you would say, politically award some of the people who will form the coalition that he's definitely about to form. So in terms of who's the biggest winner, I would say William Ruto is the biggest winner.
The Deputy President, William Ruto, has some significant following within that area, certainly among the ordinary citizens. Whether it can retain the present traction up to polling day next year is another question. And so he would do well to diversify his search for partnerships and his search for votes. If he focuses disproportionately on Central and Rift Valley, then he's going to be on a shaky wicket.
The Service Party leader Mwangi Kiunjuri, Mathira Member of Parliament Rigathi Gachagua, and Senators Kindiki Kithure and Susan Kihika are some of Ruto's close allies from the Mount Kenya region, which Ruto banks on for support in 2022. Ruto, however, lacks a strong ally in Western Kenya, while Eden Duale is keen on giving the Northern Kenya support. At the coast, the DP might bank on the fallout between Governors Hassan Joho and Amason Kingi to divide the region's vote. Kwale Governor Salim Mvurya is Ruto's point man at the coast. Other regions that Ruto lacks strong candidates to fit the top job include Eastern Region as well as Nyanza. Raila Odinga's camp may be overcrowded, with the President Uhuru Kenyatta said to be eyeing the Prime Minister's position. However, President Kenyatta has constantly denied the allegations. Raila, who is trying his 5th shot at the presidency in 2022, is also likely to enjoy the support of Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, Peter Kenneth, Anne Waiguru, National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi, Senator Gideon Moi, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi, his Ford Kenya and Maendeleo Chapchap counterparts Moses Wetangula and Alfred Mutua, and Governors Ali Hassan Joho and Wycliffe Oparanya, many of these eyeing the top 5 jobs if the BBI sails through. Interior CS Fred Matiang'i has also been pushed to the high offices, though he is yet to declare his interest in politics. Matiang'i is currently seen as the man to watch in Kisii, having served in President Kenyatta's administration for 8 years so far.
Tuweke huyu Fred Matiang'i nguvu, aendelee na ile kazi anafanya, na wakati kiyoyoma tunaweza kupandisha yeye. Si anaweza? Anaweza ama hawezi? Kingpin wa Mount Kenya region bila ilivyo ni Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, na kingpin wa Kisii ni bwana Fred nani? Wengine ni kama kuruka makojo na kanyanga.
But the expansion of the executive has been deemed costly, with the National Assembly Minority Leader John Mbadi dismissing claims that the cost of running the new offices could cripple government operations.
It's the people of Kenya who lose. It's the private citizens. It's the wananchi. It's the commoner who has to now carry that burden of financing up to 650, or is it 625 or something, MPs. The biggest loser is actually the taxpayer, who has to now, who's going to be forced to go deeper into their pockets to finance an expanded executive, where you're going to have a prime minister, 2 deputy prime ministers, you're going to have the official office of the opposition, and it's not necessarily just on salaries. These offices also demand that they hold certain budgets to carry out programs, to carry out projects.
I don't know who has calculated this cost and seen that it's a bigger burden. You know, as an accountant, I always tell people, don't just make assumptions and talk about costs when that costing has not been done. Firstly, you are talking about more parliamentary seats. How much does it cost the country to have those seats? It's not that much. People will talk about these seats as if that is where our problems originate from. Parliament consumes a very small percentage of our revenue. Secondly, the positions that are now going to the ministers, that the technocrats, are going to be reduced. We are going to have fewer cabinet secretaries coming from outside. Many will be members of parliament, just earning some extra allowance. You are going to cut costs there. We are not going to cease to have CASs.
Although President Uhuru Kenyatta is yet to take a stand on who to endorse and support as his successor, the BBI crusaders are said to be looking at other alternatives, with Kenyatta showing all the signs to back Baringo Senator Gideon Moi, even as the National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi is installed Mount Kenya spokesperson.
All right, and we also have Dr. Barak Muluka, Communications Advisor, in studio. Well, from that particular story, will be forming the basis of our conversation this morning. We get to hear some more of his wisdom in regards to the same, alongside Honorable Joash Mangi, Deputy Governor, that is Kisii County. Good to have you, Mheshimiwa, after quite a while, and I'm glad you're here. And we're also expecting Honorable Speaker for Nyeri County, that is John Kagushia, who will be joining us in a few. And so before we get to the conversation, it is only fair that we all look at what the newspaper speaks of this particular morning. So much so, well, away from matters politics, I think it's also good that we look at some of these crucial things that are of importance. First, International Women's Day. We have done well.
We are trying. We need to do much better. The women are still missing.
You know, I keep asking myself why. Why should we speak of a scenario where we say that we are trying up until today? I mean, the few years that I've been in the media industry, we've always been talking about empowering the girl child. We've always been talking about, you know, pushing the women out there. Why is it taking so long?
We're empowering them, Linda. When you go to the institutions of learning, the academies, you go to the colleges, you go to the universities, the numbers are there, they're impressive, the girls are taking over, they're taking the place by storms.
Yes.
But the deals are made at night, after work. That is when the men meet, in the taverns, when they meet in the salons, when they meet in the public houses. That is where the deals are made, and the horses are traded. At that time, our mothers, our sisters are at home.
They're taking care of the family. The few who've managed to find their ways there, in most cases, are labeled. As you know, I remember the other time we were having a conversation, and there was a leader who was speaking of girlfriends and, you know, of these people and all that. And so the few who've tried to get themselves there are still looked at as individuals that are not worth.
I think by that there you really mean in the political there.
Yeah,
there are many other theirs in the professions.
Yes.
They are there and they are respected. They're there in the academies, they are respected. They are here like yourself, and we respect you.
Thank you.
And some very many others. Those who go into the political spaces should not be deterred, and they should take there some merit instead of trying to behave like the men that they find there. You saw what happened in Matungu, Kapchai over the weekend, and it was difficult to tell the difference between the men and the women I was reminded of George Orwell's closing chapter in Animal Farm, where he says the creatures outside looked through the window and already it was becoming too late to tell the difference between the pigs and the men. They looked from pig to man and from man to pig, and there was no difference. So when the women get there, they should behave differently. They should bring some dignity, decorum, and a sense of responsibility to the political space.
You are in the political space, Mheshimiwa. You acknowledge that it's quite a tough ground. Why is it that it should be for the women to be the people or the persons who are bringing sanity as opposed to, it being a level ground for everyone?
First and foremost, Linda, let me take this chance to appreciate all women in the world. Today is Women's International Day. And let me particularly appreciate the two most important women in my life. That is the mother of my children and my mother.
Thank you.
And I appreciate them. They have brought so much joy in my life, and I appreciate them. Let me answer your question this way. You have said, why is it that women are expected to bring sanity? Because if you look at history, it's the women, even the Bible, the women were supposed to be helpers of men. So when men go wrong, the women should help.
We should find the scenario, we should come home and men are doing it right, and so we're just helping to make it even better, not to fix the wrongs that you have done.
When men make mistakes, when men in the political arena go haywire, the women should be there to help them.
Okay.
It is, I think one of the scholars, my brother here is more scholarly than me, who said, there's a scholar who said that when you educate, when you empower a man, you empower himself, you empower the man. But when you empower a woman, you empower the community. We have seen a good rise. It's not true that women have not gone into places in Kenya. If you look at some of key CEOs, Kenya Breweries, quite a number of other senior CEOs in this country are women, and they're doing a wonderful job.
Right.
As my brother said, if you look at the political arena, some of the major political players are actually women. Look at Central. Now, Waiguru is playing a very significant role. She's a woman. Look at Homa Bay, Gladys Wanga, as my brother said. When you looked at them in Matungu, there wasn't much difference between a man and Gladys Wanga. So it's not true that women are not playing a significant role. My concern, and I say this with a tongue-in-cheek, is this 30% requirement. Affirmative action, like in the US, is limited to 5 to 10%. When you push it to 30%, my concern is that you make women lazy. Because they're guaranteed, they're like, hey, I don't have to go too hard, I can be nominated.
Okay.
But elections are supposed to be competitive. And when you have an election that is competitive, everybody, regardless of gender, will go for it.
Okay.
But if you reserve 30%, like now, if in the PBI scenario, we're going to have 360 MPs, is it 360 MPs or something? So 30% will be 160, or I think 180. So if you're going to be guaranteed that you're 180 slots to nominate women, what that means that they will make the women so reluctant to go for competitive politics that they will say they will sit back and wait to be nominated.
Right.
So while I don't oppose the 30% gender rule, I look at it very suspiciously because it's not empowering women, it's making them less.
All right.
Yes.
Is it making them less, or is it also taking the space of the men? The boy child cries foul that, in this push to empowering the girl child, equally we tend to forget, or we cease discussing the importance of equally appreciating the boy child. Briefly, as we close on that.
Well, that space has been dominated by patriarchy.
Okay.
By men like Mheshimiwa here and myself. We remain dominant and deliberate. In my view, affirmative action must be taken.
Right.
Affirmative action just opens up an avenue for a limited period of time.
Yep.
after which it is expected that there is some level playing ground. Increasingly, we are going to be a value-based society. Never mind these teething problems that we are going through. In future, when my grandchildren are seated here, it will be a different society.
True.
And it's going to benefit from the kinds of efforts that we are making today. But you asked a very important question, which you may allow me to put in a footnote.
Sure.
That why should women be the ones to come and make the corrections? In social science, now that you have brought in the element of scholarship, we talk about the trope of motherhood. Yeah, the metaphor of motherhood, which represents life, which represents birth, and birth is something that goes with motherhood, and it's something that is very mysterious, something that a man like myself can only be puzzled about. Sometimes when I see a woman who is carrying a fetus, I get very puzzled. I look at her and wonder, is she one, or are they two, are they three? When she's leaving home, getting on the bus, is she wondering, saying, how are we going to get on this bus so that we are safe? As she goes through her ablutions, the kind of caution that she must make to ensure that she delivers. It's the same kind of caution that delivery of the society that we want, the social delivery, is going to depend very much on women, because they represent the finer areas of the human soul. And I think that's why they have been given that responsibility, and the responsibility of longevity. You know, a man like this gentleman here and myself, we can actually make 1,000 lives in 1 year. A woman can produce only one life. Or if she's very lucky, she can have what we call twins, triplets, or quadruplets. But men can produce thousands, some of them even millions, which means that they are dispensable. What 1 million men can do, one man could.
Well, that's a good one to look at it. And yes, maybe I should be the person who's answering this on behalf of the women. Yes, there's so much that goes on in our minds when we're trying to, you know, when we are at that particular point. And so in that case, it is only fair that we celebrate the women out here. Yes, the speaker is here with us this morning, John Kagushia, Speaker, Nyeri County. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Yes, we're celebrating the women.
Yeah, indeed.
Briefly.
Yeah, thank you. We celebrate women today, and as my colleagues have said, women have played a very key role in our country, and not only in this country, but also in the world. And I want to say that Africa has led the way in electing women who have had very serious impact in terms of political leadership, but not only in political leadership, but also in the corporate world. I can say that the Western world is actually doing catch-up with Africa on this one. We look at some of the African women presidents that we have had. We have had Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in Liberia. We've had Joyce Banda in Malawi. We've also had now Ethiopia, and have had a lady also who has been at the helm of leadership in the country. Even at the level of AU, we had a woman who was at the very top.
Mini Zuma.
That is it, and we are doing well as Africa. If you look at Kenya again, the elected women again, we find that some of the areas now have been very key on giving women an opportunity to lead. If I look at where I am in the county assemblies, we already have had 5 women who are elected as speakers of county assemblies, except that one of them dropped by along the way. That is in Nairobi. But in Machakos, if you go to West Pokot, if you go to Vihiga, if you go to Homa Bay, you find that we had women in all those county assemblies. So we celebrate women because they give good leadership. And if you look at the way they are also able to balance the leadership at home and also the leadership at the workplace, and the work they do is really and truly something to celebrate. But again, we also have these other women who are not really in the corporate world. Some of them are in the countryside, and they work very hard from the day when the day begins up to the time we end the day. You find that a lot of them have actually become like the heads of their families because of some of the challenges that we have in our society and communities today. So we celebrate women in this International Women Day.
Yes, and I mean, in the papers, lots of good stories.
There's a lot that still remains to be done.
Right.
And we must go beyond tokenism.
Ooh. Well, that's another one, a Pandora's box. We'll be having a conversation in regards to the same later on the broadcast, well, alongside key, very prominent women right here. And so it's a conversation that you do not want to miss out on. Should be at around 8 all the way to 9 a.m. So we leave it at that. I mean, the papers have hugely captured very many interesting stories in regards to the women out there. An interesting one that I've loved also on how, you know, professionals are making career out of dowry negotiations. Well, when we talk dowry, at least in Africa, we know very well it's about the women. So marriages talks are no longer reserved for family members, but they are key people who have mastered the art and the skill. And in most cases, they come on board, they charge for the same. When they go there to negotiate, trust you me, as a mother, as a father, as parents, you know, the guardians tend to get something worth because they know how to play the art. We dropped that one. I mean, another one that speaks of, you know, women who've been on the forefront. We're dealing with COVID-19 right here in the country and so much. So matters education, I guess these are the key stories that we'll pick on, 3 about or thereabout. And then we get to the conversation of the day. It reveals teachers to get better salaries under CBC. Well, the same teachers for the longest of time have been against this, the CBC, because they say we are not ready. We do not know whether this is going to be looked at as a way of trying to, you know, get them reverse their stand on this one and what grade 4 test looks like. Actually, they start today, DG. I don't know what the situation is like in Kisii County and how the students, the teachers, the fraternity at large is getting to understand the CBC.
Linda, this CBC thing is a very interesting concept in education. Actually, nobody understands it yet.
Yeah.
But we're somehow hoping that it will work out. You know, sometimes I wonder what exactly led us into changing from the 844 system.
Okay.
Initially, when we changed from the 742 system, the argument at that time was that we needed to move into a more practical-oriented approach to education. But you know, the education we moved away from was the most well-accepted British education system. And people who qualified from Kenya from high school will join any university in the world freely. Then we moved to 844 system, which was meant to be practical-oriented, and we've been doing well with it for some time now. And then all of a sudden, we moved away with the CPC, curriculum-based,
competence-based
curriculum, which, if you ask me, I'm sorry, but it does not make sense at all.
Okay.
It's nothing, and I think somebody wanted to make money by changing textbooks. Somebody wanted to make history by changing the system.
All right.
We're here to see how it will work. When I speak to teachers in Kisii, a number of them tell me they do not understand what changed. They do not understand the new concept. But I tell you, if you speak to most educationists, they will tell you they do not understand it.
All right, hold it right there. We take a quick break and then we come back to at least get to hear what it is that the rest of the guests would feel about this particular one. I remember we've had this conversation with Barack before, and unless he changed his stand, he was one of the few people who argued that maybe this would be a good thing to transforming the situation on matters education in the country, especially the incorporation of, you know, understanding the skills or getting the students to, you know, acquire skills that would be helpful, especially for the job market. And so after this break, we'll look into that.
We showed you how to eat organic.
It's not costly. It's only the people, they feared the new technology.
This Sunday, show you how to grow organic outside your house or even on acres of land. Watu wanataka vitu kubwa kubwa. Ma tomato kubwa, arrowroot kubwa. Do join me this Sunday at 7:30 to talk to Mr. Paul of Lishe Demo Farm, and he takes us to the whole process.
Hi, my name is Beldina Kirito J. Join me this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. as I show you how to bake that Black Forest cake for that dessert.
We showed you how to eat organic.
It's not costly. It's only the people, they feared the new technology.
This Sunday, show you how to grow organic outside your house or even on acres of land. Watu wanataka vitu kubwa kubwa. Ma tomato kubwa, arrowroot kubwa. Do join me this Sunday at 7:30 to talk to Mr. Paul of Lishe Demo Farm, and he takes us to the whole process.
Hi, my name is Beldina Kirito J. Join me this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. as I show you how to bake that Black Forest cake for that dessert.
We showed you how to eat organic.
It's not costly. It's only the people, they feared the new technology.
This Sunday, show you how to grow organic outside your house or even on acres of land. Watu wanataka vitu kubwa kubwa. Ma tomato kubwa, arrowroot kubwa. Do join me this Sunday at 7:30 to talk to Mr. Paul of Lishe Demo Farm, and he takes us to the whole process.
You are watching
Hi,
TV47, the home of untold stories.
All right, we are back. Still with me, John Kagushia, Speaker, Nyeri County, Dr. Barak Muluka, Communications Advisor, and Honorable Joash Mangi, Deputy Governor, Kisii County. Yes, before we went for break, we're looking at the aspect of education and the incorporation or the coming in of the competence-based curriculum. Just how instrumental would it be to transform the education sector right here in the country? We always say that education is everything. You get it right, you are almost certain of having a beautiful future future of the country. And well, I stand corrected, like I said earlier on. My argument was that I've had this conversation with Barack before, which is true actually. We've had this conversation. Then I must have gotten it wrong, because for a moment I felt like, well, and I remember very well, like you took us through the, you know, the transitions, what was there prior to 844 and how 844 came on board, and now we are getting into a different system altogether. For a moment, I thought you felt like, you know, change is as good as rest. Change is necessary.
Absolutely.
On this
not.
one, no.
It depends on what change it is, and I think there was a bit of misapprehension on the part of the host.
Oh yes.
Because
apologies.
My position remains.
Yeah.
When 844 was being introduced, and I was a youthful journalist, we were kind of skeptical about it, being products of the old system. But in the full order of time, I have seen what 844 has produced, and I'm immensely impressed.
Okay.
I think that is different from saying that I endorse this CBC, because CBC is being implemented as the curriculum is developed. I don't even know where it is going.
Yeah.
These things in education begin with the global national development agenda, where you have a plan. In our context, we are being told it's Kenya's Vision 2030. Never mind, let's put that aside, Kenya's Vision 2030. Never mind that 2030 is only 8 years away. From that, then you ask yourself, if this is where we want our country to be in the year 2030, what kind of human capacity do we need that is going to take us to that destination, that visionary destination? And therefore, you come up with a very broad rubric of education. You say this is the kind of education that we require. And you are tying it up with the national developmental agenda and focus. Then from there, you say, if this is the curriculum, we are now going to develop syllabuses that are going to deliver that curriculum. Here, in this CBC, we are not quite clear what the curriculum is. We never had an education conference to really make proper inroads into it, to see a cabinet white paper, to see a blueprint that is taken to Parliament, for Parliament to then endorse it, to see educationists coming together at a conference to break it down. And then now you have the syllabuses. Here we have a situation where the syllabuses are being written as the earlier classes have already begun using that curriculum.
It was a different scenario then when the 844 was coming in?
Absolutely. First there was Professor Mackey, I think he was from Canada, around whom gathered an assembly of educational luminaries. Professor Sifuna of Kenyatta University was one of the people at the forefront. Professor George Eshiwani, the late, among other professionals in education. And we saw very clearly where the whole thing was supposed to go. It took about 5 years from the day President Moi floated that idea to the day that it began being implemented. You are looking at the development of curriculum materials, you are looking at the training and preparation of the teachers, you are looking at the preparation of the publishing fraternity to be able to support that curriculum. You're looking at very many things that must be put together. What we are doing now is like getting in your car, kick-starting it, starting to step on the gas pedal and closing your eyes. Then you leave and hope that you will get where you are going.
Well, the possibilities of getting where it is that you're going are almost nil. So in this case, well, we probably would understand. Are you for the same argument, or you would say that this one is a little bit better? And looking at what has been captured also on the Standard newspaper, teachers are said to get better salaries under CPC. If there are individuals that have been probably against us going or running with this, even the pilot program, and the teachers should be these individuals, is it a way of trying to get them into subscribing to what is there already? Or, I mean, is there a scenario where we can even have a conversation on this? Because it looks like, well, it's all systems go.
Well, I think Barakia looks at this issue from a policy perspective, and he very clearly enumerates some of the policy challenges that we have, and also the way we have a lot of roadblocks in the in this work plan or the roadmap that we are having with the CBC. But I think I will want to look at this issue from a young parent's perspective, right. A parent whose daughter was among the first group that went through the CBC, and that is grade 3. And from a practical perspective, I hail this program. Reason being, unlike the way I have experienced 844, what I have seen happening now in class is children are being exposed more to practical lessons more than we were exposed. We did more of memorizing, more of reading the history, and more of just gathering information. Mm-hmm. For example, we were doing an exercise, and any parent of a class 3 would know, or grade 3 would know, we were doing an exercise whereby the children were supposed to practically come up with the sources of water. And you make the sources of water, and you demonstrate them, and you practically do them. Yeah. You put them on paper. In fact, at some point, they were going to do a 3D. So if it's a river, coming from the forest, coming from the mountain, okay, it's supposed to be a 3D all the way to the ocean, and all the sources of water. And the other day, they were doing the water cycle. Yeah. Right. And what's good about this is that it is done by the student and the teacher, and then the parent is also brought on board. Yes. And so in the evening, I have to be there with my child. Absolutely. And we have to do it together. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the work has to even go all the way to the weekend. Yesterday, my daughter asked me, can you take me to the supermarket? We go and buy colors because there's this work. And when I looked at all the work that she was having, it's quite a bit, and it can't be done by her alone. We have to do it together. So this CBC is involving the parent, the child, and the teacher. And then it's very practical. So once this child has done all these things, then they will not forget about it. Right. Unlike before, where you just learned about sources of water, for example, and you just memorize. There is 1, 2, 3, and then the exam comes, and then you tick A or B or C. So the way I have seen it myself, I think it's a good thing, despite, of course, the challenges that really need to be addressed. And indeed, they are true, because if you don't have a syllabus for, let's say, class 6, and you have a grade 3 today, it means that we are also not planning well. But with a good plan, and if we implement it well, then it's going to work for our kids. Now, I look at it as the way teachers are now much more involved in all these exercises, as deserving for teachers to have a better salary also. And any teacher would have probably resisted that kind of approach, because it also involves them much more. It requires you to have lesser students. And that is a challenge that we have in the country today, because we have fewer teachers and very many children in schools. Okay. The other thing is also an expensive program to implement. I look at it like, for example, like now when you are told to go and come up with the 3D sources of water, really, of course, it helps in creativity, because sometimes when you can't access materials that are bought, then you have to kind of create others in your locality. Yeah. But some of these things that you may just need to buy them. Right. And that means that it's a little bit more expensive. Yeah, so that's my own evaluation and review of this program, the CBC program, as a parent, and in a more practical perspective, someone who is going through it day by day.
All right, we drop it. We cannot make it brief, Mheshimiwa. So
I'll be very brief. I'll be very brief.
Yes.
Linda, the speaker said something very important. that it involves teachers, parents, and the child. And then he goes ahead and says that yesterday he spent the whole day with the child, learning.
Right.
You see, children must be allowed to be children, and parents must be allowed to be parents. If you are a career professional, for example, and you have work to do, you must bring the bread home. I don't want to sound like I'm running away from parental responsibility, but I don't want to be tied down the whole day doing standard 3 work because my child has to do it.
Right.
Children must be allowed to learn progressively. But if you're going to give them complicated things that they're not able to comprehend by themselves, then how are you helping them?
Okay.
If you won't stop me from going to look for bread for my family, because I must stay home and work with the child to understand things that she does not understand, you're not helping them. That is a wrong type of system. That's a wrong education system. If you go to developed countries, the UK, children are allowed to work as children, and children go to boarding school. Now, if you're in boarding school...
You can't equate this to specialization, which happens on the other side.
Which side?
Well, you're talking about abroad and all that. There's so much specialization. So in this case, do you...
No, but we're talking about elementary education, primary education.
Okay.
In the UK, most good schools are boarding schools. Now, if these children are in boarding school, when are their parents going to get them and help them?
Okay.
Education must be simple, practical, and understandable. When you make it so complicated, and I want to say again, a child must be allowed to be a child. If you are engaging a child with matters that she can't comprehend, then you're not allowing her to be a child.
All right. Do you allow me to close it at that?
Not quite.
Right. Remember, we have a bell today.
Yes, but I have to put there a footnote.
Yes.
And I agree with the Deputy Governor. Allowing children to be children, among other things, is allowing them that space to play.
Yes.
They cannot be spending all the time in school, school at home, school at work, school in church, school everywhere. There's a sense, of course, in which school is everywhere when you are learning how to cope with your environment, but it cannot be about homework. Then, of course, the speaker also speaks on misapprehension. It is not true, although I have not been to his house, it is not true that his daughter has been through the CBC. She hasn't been.
Not just yet.
She has just begun.
Right.
And I said at the beginning, it is like getting into your car, kick-starting it, closing your eyes, and setting off. So they are still at that stage, the speaker and his family and all other parents. I am a grandparent now. I don't have any more children at any level of learning, university or elsewhere. And therefore, I may not quite know what it is like. But I can say without fear of doubt and contradiction that we are supposed to be training thinkers, not technicians.
Okay.
At some point, there are people who are going to parcel themselves out because they are more technically inclined. And we should be having institutions that are going to be able to hone those skills, to develop and advance them further. In my day in high school, which was about 40-something years ago, we had technical schools. Here in Nairobi, for example, we had the Nairobi Technical School, which later on became the High Ridge Teacher Training College. We had the Kabete Technical School. It's out there on the road as you get to Kabete and Kongware. Sigalagala Technical School was very outstanding. There was another one somewhere in Eldoret. Of course, the bias here was that they tended to be male-oriented, male-dominated. On the other side, we had agricultural schools, and I went to one of them, Chavakali High School, in those years. And then you had the schools that were teaching the rest of the curriculum. That can be done. You can consider that, because you are not supposed to box a child in some kind of pigeonhole that is of a technical nature. Davy Coit came up with a very good report, which is gathering dust somewhere that clearly delineated these things and laying some degree of emphasis on what was called TVET, technical, industrial, vocational education and training. And you can see all these things where these different skills are supposed to be developed. The problem we have in this country is that everybody else who ascends to power thinks that they want now to come up with their
something
own
that they will be remembered for.
System be remembered for. And even at the bottom of this whole thing, there is money. There's money to be spent, and there's money which people are saying they are going to channel into some avenues.
Okay. All right. The conversation. Speaker, allow me to close on this one. Mary,
just a very brief point.
30 seconds.
Yeah, very, very.
At most.
Yeah. So I think in this case, I'm neither holding brief for the ministry, nor am I a CBC activist. But maybe just to point out is that what I find with this system is that it's much more practical, number one. Number two, it imparts more skills. In terms of thinking, I think is a better system for thinkers, for training thinkers, than just the technicians. And I think also because it imparts more skills and technical skills and also theoretical skills, I think it is really could be a better system than 844, which doesn't do that. The one that Dr. Barakia went through before 844 was way better than 844. And lastly, of course, it doesn't take so much of the parents' time also and also the child's time at home, not really, because like now what I was referring to is an exam they were doing, and that was the exam. And I think a system that brings together the parent, the child, and the parent, and the teacher, parent, and the child, I think is a good system because again, it tends to also bring us back as parents, back to our children, because having left our children to be on their own and us not being so much involved in their lives, has also brought a lot of issues of indiscipline and such. So really, I think for me, it could be well balanced as a system.
Yes, of course, they would speak of the absenteeism of parents. We have not even gotten to that point where we talk matters examinations. They say at least this is better. The tension that comes along with the examination is one that you'd want to genuinely root out. And, you know, practicability of just implementing this across. Well, we'll have a specialist someday so that they can be able to take us through. And today we're supposed to discuss, as agreed last time, we wanted to discuss the opposition within, but from the look of things, something else has come in the scene, and in regards to, of course, the shaky handshake, or so to speak. And we've seen the allies to Right Honorable Raila Odinga crying foul that there's some level of sabotage in regards to the handshake. About 3 years into this, the conversation is just how best has it managed to bring the sanity that we were talking about, and just how much can the people of Kenya bank on it to hold after all. And so getting us into the conversation, I mean, the key stories that have been captured on the papers: Uhuru's night call that calmed Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the People Daily, or first of all, the Daily Nation also has the very same story, Mudavadi Moi factory in 2022 plot. All this, ODM leader Raila Odinga's allies have alleged a plan by state operatives to scuttle the handshake. And I mean, we also have this one that has been captured on the People Daily, BBI unity test as Raila allies cry sabotage. And I'd want to believe that the Star speaks of the same. Yes. Musalia, it's right there, yes, speaks of words.
Musalia's entry at the center of handshake field.
That's another one. I have seen a different paper altogether. And I mean, all these papers are speaking about this. So just allow me to go for some bites that will guide us through into the conversation as we get to hear what the gentlemen of the day have to say about this.
Mheshimiwa Tindi na Mheshimiwa Murunga nimemuona juzi mkiwa kwa boma ya William Ruto. Mkienda huko, muende huko mkijua kwamba Mheshimiwa Ruto akikifanya rafiki wenu, na nyinyi muwe marafiki wake, lakini muwe waerefu kama mtoto wa nyoka. Nomwenya kutia wena ya kulia maandasi kulero mbole Ruto anyole kura yumuluya bovei.
Kwa webuye mugisa kitu hii hakutuchengea sisi, hata wakati alikuwa nini alikuwa wizara wa viwanda, na hata Bungoma County hata choo yake peke yake hakuna hapa. Hakujenga hata choo yake hapa. Yeye alikuwa waziri wa viwanda, hakujenga choo. Atoke Geneva akuja kutuzumbua sisi. Hakuna. Sisi hatutaki. Hakuna. Yeye hakujenga hata choo. Yeye wakati yani kwani tunakula ndege. Sisi tunakula ndege. Sisi tunakula ndege. Sisi hatukule ndike. Hatukule ndege. Yeye wakati hakuna. This is my money. This is my money. Why you stealing from me? Why you stealing from me? This man is stealing from me. Unaniibia pesa yangu baba. Amechukua baba. Nimempata kwa gari yake.
Talking about BBI, there is a cabal, and I'm saying this without a fear of contradiction. There is a cabal inside government who are busy trying to chart the way how Kenya will be ruled in 2022. Civil servants have no business at this time, when we have got the Big Four agenda, wherever they sit, to discuss and debate on a weighty political objective of how the succession is going to take place. And we saw it during Kibaki's time, even during the first Kenyatta's time. I urge these civil servants to be compliant and obedient to political institutions. And we know what these characters are trying to do to determine who becomes president in the year 2022. Those characters are undermining the authority and the goodwill and the vision of Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga.
Ukiona shule anaruka kutoka kwa Mwanji akwambie iko joto, ujue iko joto. You cannot doubt what Orengo and Junet are saying about the handshake.
I want to advise our brothers in ODM that do not take us back to those street battles. If you feel that something has not gone right, do not mourn more than the bereaved. Do not feel that you have been betrayed by Jubilee more than us who voted for Jubilee. Please stick to peaceful negotiations. The handshake was done in silence. Even the parting, if it is there, should be done in silence.
Alienda Manyani miaka moja na mwezi 7. Mnaandika chini. Baba akaenda mpaka industrial area prison kule ambapo mimi pia nilikuwa. Alafu wewe ukapo unasema wewe ni hustler na hujawahi shikwa hata na mtu wa kanjo. Ruto, wacha upuzi.
Wakiomba kiti ya presidential candidate mtu mmoja, Raila Amolo Odinga. Wale wanaunga mtu mwingine mkono ndani ya chama yetu waendelee, lakini wajue siku ya mwisho candidate wetu ni Raila Amolo Odinga. Huo ndio mtu tutapeleka harusi akaombe huko mambo yake na sisi tunamunga.
Before we even get to discuss the handshake itself, let's discuss Raila Odinga and these individuals that speak of a scenario where there is a problem within, or there's a problem that is there with the handshake. Many would want to argue that these ones are taking advantage of the fact that they understand very well with Right Honorable Raila Odinga, they have that political mileage. Could it be so? Have they realized that Raila has been so silent and therefore come 2022 they have to push for this to ensure that they also gain the mileage?
First and foremost, Linda, I have said before and I will say it again without fear of any contradiction, that the next president of Kenya is either Raila Amolo Odinga or William Ruto. These other players are just, they're flexing their muscles, they're just playing. There'll be two horses. The rest are donkeys.
We'd probably expect you to speak otherwise because you are an ODM member. And so one would want to ask, why is it that you sympathize with the DP yet you are
I say the next president will either be...
Yes, I know. And in fact, this question is not based on what it is that you've said. This question is based on what it is that we've witnessed over the past days.
I want to explain. You see, what we have seen over the last couple of days, and as the former minister said, when you see a frog jumping out of water, the water is becoming hot. When you see Orengo and Junet complain that the handshake has become shaky, you cannot doubt that.
Right.
It means that the handshake has become totally shaky. And why has it become shaky? Because the civil servants in government have decided to make it shaky. You see, in developed democracies, elected leaders hold sway in national decision-making matters. Civil servants are supposed to be speaking on behalf of the chief executive of the country. So if the so-called Kibichos and Matiangis are anti-Raila Odinga, then they are answerable to somebody else. The owner of the dog is allowing them to do that. So for me, I would not waste my time talking about the Kibicho or Matiangi.
So in this case, the owner of the dog is the president.
I mean, your guess is as good as mine.
All right. Well, hold it right there, Barak. Barak, just who is this Kibicho man? Who is Kibicho for a moment?
I would look for the owner of the dog.
Yes.
And I'm wondering when it was that Raila Odinga got converted, because he's the one who is used to telling us that when a dog is barking at you, do not waste your time addressing the dog. Look for the owner.
Yes.
We have seen his dogs barking, and here on this panel we are flying over the dogs to address the owner, who is Raila Odinga, because we have clearly seen the dogs. I do not know whose dog Kibicho is, because at some moment not so long ago, the deputy president's dogs, the deputy president's dogs also barked about the same Kibicho. And I did not hear Raila's dogs barking back or or telling him to look for the owner of the dogs. But always there have been those men and women of power in government. There are always people who have their own interests in the present dispensation and in the future dispensation. Certainly Geoffrey Karidhi was very powerful in the Kenyatta government when President Moi took over. It probably coincided with the time for Karidhi to decide to retire. I don't know. He probably would have been aged out regardless. Jeremiah Kiareni came in, he was very powerful. Then we have had other men and women of power in those places. We don't hear very much about Joseph Kinyua. Perhaps he sits at the back behind the scenes and drives the processes. But we are aware that there was Simeon Nyachai, who was very powerful. Fares Kwindwa did not quite exercise those powers. Philip Mbithi and many others, Sally Kosgei. They have always been these people, Joseph Letin, and they have been they have been very, very powerful. Francis Kimemia until just the other day. Now, the principal issue which allow me to unload is that everybody has a right to decide on who they are going to back, including the president. What everybody else should be concerned about is whether the institutions, the systems, the instruments are right and they are creating a level playing ground.
Are they in this case?
But I do not know. They have told us they have the BBI. And they have told us that the BBI is the silver bullet that is going to answer all these questions. So if the BBI seems to be working and it's going in the right direction and nobody can stop reggae, then I don't understand what this childish whining is all about. And it's very disappointing that these ladies and gentlemen are telling us things like they are going to go back to the streets, they are going to take Kenya back where it was. Who the hell do they think they are that they can hold the country at ransom?
Shouldn't we be scared?
In perpetuity. When they get to the
maybe the speaker should be the person to answer that. Shouldn't we be scared in this case? I mean, a redemption process is evidently being hijacked by political circus. Shouldn't be worried for a moment?
What redemption process?
I mean, the BBI, the handshake was a redemption process last time we checked. But today we speak of it being more or less like a tool for politics, a political tool, so to speak. So, I mean, we are getting confused therein. And when you hear such utterances, going back to what it is that we saw the other day, you know, during the by-elections, Kisii was not so rosy. He will attest to that because he was on ground. Yes. I mean, don't you think it is cause for a worry?
Well, I'm happy for a moment to have interviewed the host herself.
Oh, yes, you questioned me. I hope I've answered accordingly.
Yeah, because you talked about redemption moment.
Yes.
So, and of course, anyone would understand what redemption. Nevertheless, I think in this process where we have the whining, as Dr. Barak puts it, with the ODM senior members of the political party, is very interesting because they seem to be waking up to the fact that actually Raila Odinga is a beast of burden. And they take the president. They don't take the president for his word when he says that in the handshake arrangement there was no 2022 political succession politics in it, and I think that has been very clear. Of course, Raila Odinga has also been saying the same, but I don't think he has ever meant it, even a single day. I think all along for him, he knows that they only say that to disguise. But I don't think on the other side there's any disguise. In fact, when they say there was no political arrangement in the handshake, that's what they mean. But you see, the ODM party has taken that to just be a disguise, and so they think they will organize their politics using the BBI process. Now, just as it is happening to Ruto, that according to the government machinery that organizes or that is looking at the issue of transition, they do not have him anywhere in that work plan or in that roadmap. Similarly, they do not have that also for Raila Odinga. But he doesn't know that. He seems to be blinded by the trappings of power that now he enjoys in government. And you see, what has been happening all along is that the ODM party has been enjoying the trappings of power. And in fact...
But just a minute.
Yeah. Okay.
Is as a Kieraweka man, he is saying that the powers that be do not have Ruto anywhere in their plan. They also do not have Raila in their plan. Say that louder. So the Kieraweka team do not have Raila anywhere in their plan.
Are you not a Raila man?
No.
I just want to hear it from them.
What is interesting is the way he has actually branded me.
That you're a Kieraweka person.
You go to today,
are you not? We need to make that clear, by the way.
I am the Speaker of the County Assembly of Nyeri. I'm very objective.
You know, you can't run away from branding, unfortunately. You see, I was telling the gentleman today when I dropped my poster somewhere online, and the level of branding that was there is one that we'll speak about after again we are done with the show. So I'm afraid as a politician you do not run away from such.
Yeah, I'm usually branded many times. Other days I'm called this Tangataga speaker. The other day, especially when I gave two MCAs who are opposing the BBI the platform to express their views, again that confirmed all of a sudden to everyone. You see, this speaker is a Tangataga speaker. I get it. So I'm used to the brandings, but because we look at things as they are, we make our argument as it is, we get straight on the issues, and that way then we are able to analyze objectively. So in this case, I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan or in the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned, or as far as that government machinery is concerned. And that is my view, really. Yeah, but because of the trappings of power, the ODM side doesn't see this. They are blinded. And for a moment, they are now coming to see that in fact they are outside the whole of this arrangement. Now, if you look at the complaints by Orengo, then compare that with what they say, that all we need is the system, is the deep state. In fact, they're the same people who seem to have elevated the issue of the system and the deep state to a very high level in terms of operation.
Okay.
And they've been very happy about it. But now when things seem to be working against them, they come on board and start complaining about the same system. I mean, just like a month ago, even 3 weeks ago before the election in Matungu and Kabuchai and all that, I know for sure these are people who have benefited immensely from the same system, and from the same cabal that they refer to. And so what I see here is hypocritical. It is not, I mean, it's hypocritical what Orengo is saying and what Junet Mohammed is saying. It's very hypocritical, because tomorrow, if they are the same beneficiaries now of the same office they are demeaning today and belittling, they will not talk about it. They will be happy.
All right. Hold it right there, Speaker. And we have seen what is culminating here. They're still pushing for Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who has not even declared his interest in this case. The likes of Joho have declared their interest within the party. And then one would want to ask, why is it that it should always be about Right Honorable Raila Odinga? We constantly have spoken of how unfair it is to have, presidents who want to be life presidents in Africa, so to speak. And here we have an opposition leader, or so to speak, or a person who's running out there for presidency, who's been there, constantly. And a few would ask, why is it that he would not choose to say, let me endorse somebody else within the party. Let me try and push somebody else into this particular point. I mean, he's constantly also on record complained about leaders who want to stick to power. Is it not as good as one that actually wants to stick to power, as an opposition leader for life, or so to speak?
That is a question that will be best answered by himself.
Oh, is it so?
And also by those who are pushing for his presidency.
Okay.
But there's no doubt that Raila Odinga is a powerful politician in this country. He's a big player. I would say if you do hierarchy after President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President, the next person will be Raila Odinga. So he's not a man you can ignore when you're doing your political calculus in this country.
But powerful enough to endorse someone as he did with Kibaki Tosha.
Exactly, and that is why probably those who are championing his presidency are people who may want to benefit from his endorsement. Remember, there are people in Luo Nyanza who have become members of parliament or governors or senators, people about shitting themselves with Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
Such people will always endeavor to push for his agenda because effectively they're pushing for their own agenda. Aladwa will be very comfortable when Raila is a president or a presidential candidate because then he will tag on his coat. The people in Nyanza, Orengo, for example, in 2017, did not campaign at all in Siaya, but he became senator because he claimed he was out there helping Baba. And therefore, that was his campaign. So there are people who have vested interest. But let me answer a question you asked about the by-elections that took place recently, more particularly in Kisii.
Yeah.
I want to agree, I think it is Governor Paranya who said that there were no elections in Matungu. I want to agree with him 100%. There were no elections. On Thursday, there were no elections. Either in Matungu, in Kabuchai, or Kisii.
Would you have said the same thing if your preferred candidate got this
I would have said the same thing.
Okay.
Because, let me give you the example of what happened in Kisii, in Kiamakama. Some of us are not very good in running to the press. Although I come on occasion, but I'm not very good running the press. I did not run the press on what happened to me on Thursday. But I'll tell you, Linda, I was scared, I panicked, because I couldn't believe that a uniformed police officer in full glare of the cameras threw a live tear gas canister at the vehicle I was in.
Are you being targeted, DG? I mean, at least based on what it is that we've seen.
That is the question I wanted to ask Matiang'i. Why does he want to kill me? I would like to understand, because if you throw a live canister, a tear gas canister at a moving vehicle, and it hit my car right from behind, if it had exploded inside the car, I don't know if I'd be alive today. So I went and sat down and asked myself, when a uniformed police officer in the full glare, it was not a member of the public, it was not a county enforcement officer, it was a uniformed officer. And they were 15. They cocked their live guns at us, and when we moved away, two of them. One threw one, it hit my car with the car that I was in. The other one threw, but it missed. And then one fired up. And then we ask ourselves, is this an election? I mean, when you do that, what do you expect from the bystanders who had come there to vote? They run away. And then once they ran away, on God knows what they did with the ballots. So I will tell you confidently that what we saw on Thursday was not an election. I think the powers that are decided to humiliate both ODM and UDA for their own reasons. They made sure that in Nyanza, that is in Kisii, an ODM person won. They made sure that in Kakamega, an ANC person won. They made sure that in Bungoma, a Ford Kenya person won. In Nakuru, a UDA person won. Was in Greece, they made sure that a Jubilee person won. So this was orchestrated. But for me, my biggest concern is that we have gone back to the 80s and the 90s, where police will do things that are unimaginable. I saw my brother, I don't know if I can call my brother anymore, but I saw Matiang'i, the Minister for Interior, on Friday comfortably stand up and say that people who went to polling stations and caused mayhem, the people who went to polling stations and caused mayhem were uniformed police officers.
Is it so, Barack? I mean,
don't you
think the politicians have also become too much from what it is that we see? I mean, technically, what it is that we were treated to was something that was playing out between the police and politicians as opposed to the people themselves. I mean, what does it speak?
Well, that's why, Linda, I'm talking about institutions, systems, and instruments. And I have sat in this same place where I am before Matungu, Kabuchai, and the other places. And I have been critical of the content of the BBI. I have said here, and the viewers and the other panelists who have been around will bear me witness. I have said time and again that we are not addressing the issues that we should be addressing. The thing which is called the handshake was a factor of a flawed election. That people in this country fought, houses were burned, lives were lost because of the perception that there was a stolen election. And when someone was told there's a repeat election, he said, I will not go to that election before the following 11 irreducible minimums are addressed. When you look at the BBI bill, it does not have any of those things there, because somebody believes that he now has got the system and that it doesn't matter, the election can now be stolen because it's going to be stolen for me. Then we are seeing the optics that are indicating that you are actually being sidelined and that you have already put draconian provisions in that which you call the BBI bill. And that if this BBI bill goes through the rest of the stages, somebody else is going to use those laws and not you. Does it not kind of puzzle us to hear ODM politicians, MPs, now saying that we are going to defeat this BBI in Parliament? My goodness, ODM, you want to defeat BBI in
the very same
Parliament?
people,
You want to stop reggae in Parliament? And you have been telling us that nobody can stop reggae? So this speaks to what the Speaker calls hypocrisy. That you have gone and heaped bad things in this thing, and people have been telling you, stop, wait a minute, let us discuss these things. Imagine those laws in the hands of your worst enemy and how you would deal with them. So now we have got, they're being called the Sacred Alliance. It's a rather curious name. It reminds me of the Congress of Vienna. Allow me to digress a bit, of 1814, when the Russian delegate at the Congress proposed that they convert themselves into a holy alliance. They said, let us call ourselves the Holy Alliance. and the British Foreign Minister, Lord Talleyrand, called it a high-sounding nothing. And the Austrian Crown Prince Metternich called it a piece of sublime mysticism and nonsense. I don't know whether this sacred one of ours is a piece of sublime mysticism and nonsense, like Metternich would say. But a speaker here has said that the DG has said that the race is between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. As of now,
on the other hand, right,
the optics are clearly indicating that it's Ruto versus Raila, in spite of the fact that what the speaker is saying is also something I buy in, that the system seems to be edging them out. The president has a right to endorse whoever he thinks he wants. If he wants the Holy Alliance, the Sacred Alliance, if he wants a high-sounding nothing, a piece of sublime mysticism and nonsense, if that's what the president wants, he's allowed. The systems should work. President Moi had his own high-sounding nothing in 2002, and it was defeated. So Raila and his team should refrain from trying to blackmail this country and holding us hostage in perpetuity, telling us things like, tutaenda kwa streets. When Uhuru was in Sagana the other day, he reminded Kenyans that it's not only you who can go to the streets. They should read that missive in Converse.
Are we allowing emotions to apply principles in this particular case? And why is it then, as many have argued, that this is coming out in the public domain? Is it, things that they should just fix down there, housekeeping matters for that matter?
No, we are being hypocritical and subjective. We are not being objective. I remember we had a discussion here about 2 or 3 weeks ago with the Tongaren MP, Dr. Eseli, and Dr. Barak here. And we talked about the issues of how we make laws, and sometimes we make laws that are not objective, and then those laws, they come back to bite us. And in fact, we even gave an example of the detention without trial back in 1960s. And you actually put it clearly, the second person to have been detained was Jaramogi Odinga, who was also the main proponent of the same laws. And that morning, we were having a prayer breakfast in Nyeri, and I did raise the issue, and I raised it also with one of the members of parliament who is in that committee, the Internal Security Committee, who also comes from my area. And I remember it became a very serious bone of contention after that. And I was just repeating the session we were having here that morning. And why I'm saying this is because what we have in the laws that are being made at the moment is that the ODM side of government, quote unquote, is proposing certain laws that under normal circumstances they would have been very much opposed to. And at the same time, they have also abandoned some of the ideals they stood for, which would have brought more transparency and accountability in our systems. Now, the only problem is that if they do this and continue doing it without blinking an eye, this is likely to haunt them later on when they actually find that the shoe is on the other foot. But I'm happy because James Orengo somehow is able sometimes to detect some of these things from afar. He can smell mischief very early. Because like the laws that we were referring to here that day when we were discussing were the laws that are now being proposed by the MP for Kiambaa, Koinange, which have to do with criminalizing a political slogan, you know, and we really condemned that.
Right.
And I'm happy because, again, the person who came forward to condemn the same was James Orengo. He said, no, we can't go that direction. Because he's also starting to sense, which direction are we taking? What about if we find things now inverted? So it's important that as we make laws, as legislatures, it's very important when we have power and when we can access power to do that which is good for the country. And that's why I support the fact that anyone can support any candidate they want. But what we need to be concerned about is the structures of governance, is the instruments of power, is how we implement our laws, is the objectivity, is having a justice system that works, is having a judiciary that is independent, is also having the independent bodies as independent as possible, is having a police system that is not serving certain parochial interests, and we have something that is objective and serving all Kenyans. And if you look, for example, at what we had in the name of elections last week, you get very scared. Because then, you know, democracy has actually been thrown out of the window.
Okay.
Anyone who wishes to contest a position in 2022 must be very, very worried about what we saw. Because if that's how elections are going to be conducted in 2022, if this was just a dress rehearsal of how it is going to be, then you know very well that we can as well now hang our boots and accept democracy has gone with the wind.
All right. Before we come to you, DG, let me let me just call for Barack to unpack this statement for us. Statement I picked somewhere else. A person argues that a united country with poor democracy is better than a country divided with good democracy. So in this case, he says we could be having the best of democracy, but we are not united. Tanzania could be better off, you know, with their poor democracy, but they enjoy unity.
You know, the reason I'm laughing, that is extreme simplicity of the intellect.
Okay.
Extreme simplicity of the intellect. That a country where there's unity and that has no democracy is badly governed, but there's unity. That kind of unity is bad unity. For a start, if there's bad governance, all right, then there's bad unity. That's bad unity. Then that unity is bad unity. That unity is like if we unite here and we say, let's go and rob a bank. We leave this place united.
Okay.
And our unity
is not for a good cause.
Plain language is called conspiracy.
Okay.
So if you have conspirators who come together and they unite and they say, let us go and kill Caesar. Is that better than people who say, let's go and talk to Caesar, and they have different angles of what they think they should go and discuss with Caesar?
The latter could be better.
Unity is as good as the purpose for which people unite.
He cites the example of Tanzania. He says
Tanzania is not
badly off in terms of democracy.
United. There are people who have come to Tanzania to run in elections. We have seen them being shot at. Tundu Lissu was a person who absorbed about
very many bullets.
20 bullets. Yeah. We have seen that there is a muzzling of the press. We have seen that people could not even talk about COVID, about COVID-19. They were united. Yeah, in the petition that they would not talk about COVID. And now we are seeing that they are united in death and they are dying in their scores. The other day we were told about 85 just from the Catholic fraternity alone.
Well, 60-something, so 65, I think. Yeah.
Democracy is not just about elections. Democracy is about how society is oxygenated, that people are allowed the freedom to express themselves, that people have equal access to development opportunities, that nobody feels like they are hedged in. And when we go to elections, we only go there to validate the democratic governance of society, so that a governor doesn't just wake up one morning and he says, I'm taking everything to my village, and the president says, I'm taking everything to my village, and you have a few other people in power who are saying, me, I'm not taking to my village, I'm taking to my family. And they are united, that you take yours to your family, you take yours to your village, I take mine. What about the people? So unity is as good as the purpose for which people unite.
Well said. DG, as we come to a close, NCIC is here. Yes. You speak of a police force that really is not there to serve the people, but does contrary. What would you say the other time? At least this one I am certain. We spoke of the NCIC, Barak. You cannot run away from this. And we said that it is you in particular.
I said, it's helpless.
It's helpless.
It's clueless. It's asleep. It's very partial in its dealings with issues. You look at Matungu.
Yeah.
If we had an NCIC that was active, that can bite, we would not be seeing what we are seeing.
Is it so, DG?
Yeah, before I answer that, let me say one thing.
Okay.
About a united country without democracy is better than a divided country with the democracy. See, that is the kind of dictums that dictators who call themselves benign use. You know, when you call a dictator a benign dictator, you're saying that this is a good bad person. That this person is bad, but he's a good bad person.
Okay.
It doesn't add up. A dictator is a dictator. There's nothing like a benign dictator. So when you tell me that a united country, in other words, a dictatorship, is better than a divided country, it does not make sense.
So in the quest of democracy, we also have to try and attain unity.
In the quest of democracy, you know, democracy is about respecting people's rights.
Okay.
You cannot deny me my rights and tell me because there is peace, there's semblance of peace, we are okay. But you have denied my right. You see, when you claim that somebody is enjoying some peace, who is enjoying the peace if I'm not enjoying my peace? How can you tell me that I should be happy that Matiang is enjoying his peace when he is tear gassing me? What kind of happiness is that?
Silenced.
Okay. I'm silenced. NCIC. I don't want to sound like my brother, but I am afraid I might be worse because NCIC is clueless, almost useless, because what they read on Saturday is what Matiang read on Friday. They simply changed a few wordings and read exactly what Matiang read. So they're dancing to his tune. They're not doing their job. It is the most useless commission I've ever seen. They have come up with this funny speech that they will be naming, they will be shaming people. What's a list of shame for what? If you commit a crime, you get tried. But you don't tell us that you want to shame somebody because you believe he has committed a crime. Now, if they were listing the 10 legislators who apparently committed crimes in Matungu and the Kabjai, why, and I ask again, why didn't they arrest the police officers who threw a live canister?
Is there space for IPOA? Maybe the speaker can come in regards to that. I would want to believe that IPOA then comes in handy on this one. Do you believe there is enough space and freedom and independence for them to get down into the bottom of this?
In Kibaki's era, and I think there's an objective assessment, the independent bodies were truly dependent. And we saw, I don't know whether it's because most of the people who led some of those dependent bodies really had been hired very independently. But at that point, we used to see a bit of independence being exercised. Probably not to the level that we would want, but at least there was some level of independence. But unfortunately, I think for some reason now, we have the independent bodies kind of being swallowed by the executive. And so it's rare now to see an independent body really challenging the executive actions in whichever way.
All right.
So I think in the current situation, we may not be looking so much for a lot from IPOA.
We are closing it. 30 seconds.
Close,
okay.
Let me hope that the NCIC would not be instructed to come for me because I've called them for what they are. Because clear what they're doing is what they're instructed to do.
Should we really be? I mean, this is DG for Kisii County who is worried that they would come for him.
Because they'll be told to come for him.
I mean, what does it speak of where we are headed as a people as we come to a close?
Linda, as Barak, I am unbowed.
Okay.
Completely unintimidated.
All right.
I speak for this country until the day I drop dead. So anyone who wants to come for me,
let them do so.
Come.
Good.
Are we going to ages where, there's a time I went to cover, the elections in Zimbabwe. I'm telling you, those people could see the camera and run away, literally. Are we really going to that level where so much will be gagged?
Absolutely. That's the whole essence of the BBI. What we have been talking about, some of us, that this is the worst kind of thing anyone has done to the law. And you have seen that the owners, the foremost owners of the BBI, are now getting into panic because they know that somebody else is likely to use the bad law that they have been pushing, and they are very worried.
Well, they argue that it's not bad.
They might as well go into the streets just now. They might as well sabotage the BBI, and we have heard them say, we are going to defeat this thing in Parliament.
Well, Dr. Barak Muluka.
Nemesis.
We wait to see. Today we have not spoken about the DP in any instance. It's strange because you realize that most of the times we're talking news is always right there, and I mean, subject for another day. Dr. Barak Muluka, Communications Advisor, John Kagusha, Speaker, Nyeri County, and lastly, Honorable Joash Mangi, Deputy Governor, Kisii County. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Allow me to close it at that as we get to a different conversation. Oh, please celebrate them, yes?
There's a lady there in the Daily Nation, page 18.
Okay.
Yeah, a lady there by the name Dr. Susan Mambo.
All right.
As the lady I was referring to, we were doing the homework with the kids.
Ah.
Yeah, so I want to celebrate her. I see she has made it in the list of the trailblazers in today's paper.
Congratulations to her. And we celebrate her. You want to condole with the family and friends and supporters and fans of Joski?
Oh yeah, we are the generation that grew up listening to Joski Kiamukuta, his melodies. And then of course there was Mzee Franco, who also went away.
At least that one I know, Wabulwazi.
There was Sam Mangwana.
Yeah.
Yeah, the days when the TPK OK Jazz was at the apogee of its artistic performance. He has since gone, and we pray for his soul to rest in eternal peace.
Right.
Let me join my brother here. I also belong to that generation, another one.
Right.
Not his, another one. We are some of those who enjoyed. In I think in the late 80s when Franco came to Kisumu, and the people in Kisumu,
they pushed the wall.
They pushed the wall.
Yes.
I was actually there. I was one of those. I was one of them. That's how much I loved Rumba.
They were waiting to get into the stadium.
Yes.
And the queues were very long.
Yes.
The crowd was very big. And they were the fellows who do the curtain raising, as usual, playing. Yes. And they were not worried. until when Franco got onto the stage, and he just drummed.
Yes.
The first drums of the guitar, and they pushed the wall.
People went wild. Those were the days of Lutumba Simaro Madilu system. The world, we just went crazy.
Mayoni Mayaula.
So we celebrate these Congo musicians. And most of them made their homes in Nairobi.
Yeah.
And I'm told Rumba, Ringara specifically, is liked in Nairobi more than it's played in Congo. I wish they could translate that Lingara music into Swahili.
Oh, so at least we could know what we were
singing. The interesting thing is that sometimes they're even just commercials.
Oh yeah.
It could be a certain soap.
Yes, that's
it could
and
be
we
a
are
certain
busy.
kind of car.
Yes.
It could be a shop in Brussels.
All right.
But
the speaker is out on this one completely.
Probably I would only celebrate Samido and Dick Munyonyi.
It used to be played outside retail stores and wholesale stores in Kinshasa to attract
customers.
clients. But we can talk about Rumba also some
Yeah,
other day.
I know, right? I'm privileged to
Next
have
time I'll
grown
talk
up in
about
such
Samido
yes.
and
Firirida. I will allow you to do that. Gentlemen, before you go, we have these ladies on Skype. Dorothy Okemo, who's the Executive Officer, Access to Medicine Platform, and Betty Adera, founder, Betty Adera Foundation, and equally Miss President, Nairobi County. How about you wish them
Happy
yes.
Mother's Day.
Yes, Women's
Women's Day.
Yes, Women's Day. More or less the same thing, actually.
Yes, and there's the other Dorothy in my house.
Oh.
Who must also be wished a very wonderful Women's Day. And my mother, Rosalind, she's still there. My daughters, Patience and Lorraine. My daughters-in-law, my granddaughters. Yeah.
I think she
give
a generation of
I'm Luya from Western.
I think Linda should give me congratulate because I'm the one who started this. As soon as I began speaking,
we started by saying
I started by recognizing the two women in my life.
Yes.
I do know I have sons. I have two sons. I don't have daughters. And I hope that they also grow up to get one of women in their lives. And you know, I tell you something, women are beautiful. And the women bring happiness into our lives.
Right.
I don't know what this world will be without women. You know, can you imagine? Even as we are sitting, the three of us here, if there was a woman amongst us, this man would have been smiling better.
I know, right? Yeah. Next time I'll do something. Next time I'll make sure to do something. You know, interestingly, the only person who celebrated me or has wished me a good
we're celebrating you too.
Barack has done that, though off camera. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Speaker Bana. On this one, you have failed me. And all the same, thank you so much.
Linda, I want to do it on camera.
Please do that.
We celebrate you.
Thank you so much.
You bring so much.
And actually, we realize and recognize and appreciate the fact that this show is run by women. The producer,
yes,
the
it's Mary.
presenter.
Thank you so much.
We celebrate all of you.
Very competent women.
Very competent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tunafanya kazi mzuri. Well, the ladies out there, the men are off, and we're coming to you. But that should be after this short break.
You are one. They say the way to the heart is through the stomach. This month of love, Throwdown shares with you those amazing food ideas for that candlelit dinner and picnic date. Learn those dining etiquette and avoid those embarrassing moments every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. What's the perfect way to kickstart your day in the morning? Well, apart from having a healthy breakfast, the Morning Cafe is all you need. We will inform you on what's happening on the roads, dive deeper into the newspapers, alongside heated political debates.
I have to fight the order. Yes.
Did you know that your greatest wealth is health?
Then we start eating right, and that's what I do in my clinic.
With some good Friday vibes. The Morning Cafe with Linda Alela, Monday to Friday, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Only on TV 47. On the grind, we bring you different entrepreneurs who give the story of their businesses with love and passion.
I'm a musician forever. This is something that is inborn.
It excites me each day. It's a field that has always excited me.
Because when you show love to your business, it will show love to you.
The most rewarding bit of being a photographer is seeing a bride able to see her images of her wedding and evoke emotion in her and just relive the moment once again.
Get to hear these stories and so much more every Monday at 7:30 p.m. On Coffee with Movie, we bring you great testimonies from amazing personalities.
Mwanzo wa kwanza alikaa ndani, ilikuwa intense because alikuwa yeye alikuwa atafuta place atawaka akifanya thesis zake.
Stories that will inspire and encourage you.
Hiyo kitu ilisha waswa ni clap. Sheila told us this is what we've been looking for.
And some that will even make you laugh out loud.
You have chapa kawa ya kutuliza temperature kabla hiyo story.
Na wewe kuleta mandazi bro.
Mbona ingeandikwa coffee and mandazi
Make sure you catch the episodes of Coffee with Movie every Sunday at 8 p.m. Love is friendship that has caught fire. It is the month of love.
When you're loved truly, every grain of your personality changes. Ooh.
A great time to add more fire to your love life.
Why not have a journey before the climax rather than always thinking about the climax?
With great insights from our
Welcome back to the broadcast. We're all about the women out here, International Women's Day, as we talk matters inclusivity and equality and a couple or a raft of other issues that revolve around women. And this under the theme Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. Earlier on, I had introduced the ladies that we have on board, but I'll still do the same this morning as we appreciate them and we say asante sana for the great things that they are doing towards, getting the women up there. And so we have Dorothy Okemo, who's Executive Officer, Access to Medicine Platform, and Betty Adera, a household name, founder, Betty Adera Foundation, and also Miss President, Nairobi County. Good to have you, ladies. Good morning.
Morning, Linda.
How have you been, Betty? It's quite a while back. Was that Betty or Dorothy?
Yes, I was saying more and happy International Women's Day to you and all the women and men out there.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Betty is a bit low. Kindly, if we can fix that. Dorothy, how are you? I think we've had a session once and then you disappeared.
I'm back now. Thanks for having me on the show.
Good to have you.
Here on this day.
Mm-hmm. And we have a man here. I'd want to say that, there's so much that we can talk about the women, but you realize that we've been pushing so much on the aspect of inclusivity, equality, getting them to the top of the helm, in terms of leadership across. And the gentleman on board argued that, yes, we have made great strides, but we still have a long way to go in terms of just getting the women up there. What would you say we have done so far? What would you say would be the stumbling block to us achieving what it is that we seek? What would we say today that would be one thing that would help us root out affirmative action, which has been incorporated to us ensuring that at least we create that level playing ground? Dorothy.
Thank you, Linda. I think we have made quite a bit of strides in Kenya in terms of equality and equal opportunities for women. But personally, I think it's time we sort of changed tact and brought we brought men on board as champions so that the men are also championing for the rights of women, for equal opportunities for women. Because what we have been doing so far has been misunderstood, and many people think that when we advance the rights of girls and women, we are doing this to the exclusion and disadvantage of boys and men. And that really isn't the case. What we are trying to do is make sure that both genders are at par and they have equal opportunities and they can, all reach their potential. Mm-hmm. So I think it's high time we incorporated the boys and the men and we make them the champions to ensure that their sisters, their mothers, their aunties are able to get equal opportunities just like boys without feeling disenfranchised.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm sure Betty will agree with you. But Betty, don't you think that we've seen men coming out, in terms of trying to push for this, empowering the girl child and all that, a conversation that, has helped us take a different trajectory in comparison to what has been there in existence? Would you argue that they are happy, or it's a happy place for them to try out and push the women? Betty?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, but taking it from where my fellow panelist has left it, yes, we need to have men and we need to have boys brought from the back of the room to the front of the room. Often a good number of the ills that affect women are actually as a result of something to do with a man. If you take, for instance, sexual and gender-based violence, we tend to talk to the girls and we're talking to the women and we're talking with ourselves, but we're not bringing enough the person who is actually doing this to us. And I know by my own experience, even at the Betty Adera Foundation, that when you engage boys and men the right way, when you bring them as co-creators, when you bring them as partners, better or stronger champion for women's rights than boys and men. And we even see this in the political leadership in Kenya, when narratives are put in such a way that it appears that men and women are fighting. It appears that it's a gender war, while it should not. It should be a gender integration conversation. So today, as we celebrate the International Women's Day, we need to think more about ways in which we can bring everybody on board, everybody around this table for the sake and for the good of the woman and for the good of the girl, not only in Kenya, but globally.
All right, we do not want to perpetuate this narrative, Dorothy. In my own opinion, I would probably argue that I have seen lots of men coming on board, pushing for this conversation of how we can end the cat, pushing for this conversation of how we can stop, early childhood, early marriages and all that. And I mean, we've seen them, trying to get themselves into conversations where we get to have policies that favor the girl child. We get to find ways of getting the girl child to get access to medicine and all these crucial things that they may need, understanding how much they are vulnerable and the special needs that they have. But do you suppose there's indeed proper goodwill that comes from this other end that would confidently say that if we incorporate them, then we are certain to achieve something?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you're really right. And in fact, the voices of the men that we hear are really men who are educated and empowered and in the urban areas. I think the biggest problem is that we have not done enough work in terms of sensitization, in terms of advocacy and education for the boys and men in the rural areas, because this is honestly the places where a lot of this kind of practices go on. For example, FGM, early childhood marriages, a lot of sexual and gender-based violence. So I think it is important for us, even as we sit in Nairobi, that we are able to pass this message down to the grassroots, to the lowest level, because we need the men who are really deeply rooted in tradition and autocracy to be able to also understand why it is important to protect their women and girls, why it's important to respect them, and why it's important to be at the forefront of making sure that they have this kind of equal opportunities. So I think that's what I said in the beginning, that we need to look at how we can change tact and really trickle this messaging, downwards in the communities, in the villages. So even as we do the work that we do in terms of access to medicines, in terms of advocacy, in terms of engaging with the counties, this needs to be part and parcel of that kind of work that we do. That is community engagement and education. I think that is the only way we'll start really seeing a change in terms of reducing these negative indicators that disenfranchise women and girls.
Betty, let's talk education and going with the theme that we have today, Women in Leadership 1, but importantly, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. That acknowledgement that indeed we are in a COVID-19 world, and not just a COVID-19 world, but a world that is full of pandemics, that, a world that is full of challenges and difficulties. Just how then are we able to achieve equality? Or a future that is impressive and a future that is friendly for the girl child?
Thank you very much, Linda. Now, education as it is one of the greatest responses to all these prejudices that we see happen. It's so difficult to be a leader when you do not have sufficient education. And in the world, and also hit Kenya last year. Sector to be grossly impacted. Schools were just closed overnight. And all, stayed at home. The teachers stayed at home. Parents had to deal with their kids and all that. And within just 2 to 3 months into the COVID-19 pandemic, we could hear everywhere the hue and cry of the proportion of girls who are being sexually violated, and women, the proportion of girls who got pregnant just within that particular period because they were on lockdown with the people who are their enemies, by their perpetrators. And even this year, when the schools were opened in January in Kenya, I know by my own knowledge that not every girl, and even boy, who was in school has gone back to school. And if you lose a huge constituency of girls who do not complete their education, they do not have even the basic primary level certificate, they do not have the secondary level certificate, then we're looking at a whole constituency of women and girls whose rights are violated and who might not achieve their social and economic goals as Kenyans living wherever they are. So when it comes to education, there are also some structural barriers that then inhibit these girls from going back to school. Yes, while the policies are there that enables girls, even when you're pregnant, go back to school, but it
All right, I think we have lost Betty there, but as we try to fix that, back to you, Dorothy. We talk COVID-19, we talk other complications that our women continue to, struggle with down there. I mean, in your line of duty, we understand that there's so much that you actually do towards getting, the girls, first of all, access some of this medicine that we speak about. You get the girls access some of the rights that they would, require. You get the girls access, and get to understand, actually, are privy to the knowledge of what it is that has been incorporated in terms of programs by the government or with government or NGOs of getting them to just have a proper life, What has been done different at this point of COVID-19, and looking at the fact that we've seen very many girls, are not in school because when they got pregnant somewhere along the way, they are experiencing difficulties in terms of health and all that. What different has been done?
Well, I think, I really think that COVID-19 really sneaked up on us, and I don't think anybody anticipated that it was going to take this long or to be to the magnitude that it is right now. So I don't think there were measures that were put in place to deal with the effects of COVID-19. But I think I can specifically talk about what we did during this time. I remember in 2019, we held a teen summit that brought together about 500 girls from Narok County. And this is something we did in partnership with the county government. And so last year, what we decided to do is to actually go down into the field and find these girls that we talked to back in 2019, just to see how staying out of school had affected them and how, what kind of effect the Teen Summit had on them. And we actually documented this. What is interesting, and exactly what Betty said, is that education is such a fundamental thing that we really have to prioritize. So when we talked to some of these girls, of course, we found some of them had gotten pregnant and they had already given birth to children. But what is important is that even after this happened, they understood the importance of getting an education and going back to school. And so it's very nice to see that these girls not only gave birth, they actually refused to get married to the people that impregnated them. And they're very committed to being in school. Some of them even want to be doctors. And there are others we talked to who even have some knowledge around contraceptives, by the way. And they were very categorical that they would not allow a boy or a man to, lay them away from their studies and the dreams they had for themselves. So I totally agree that we really need to integrate information, we need to integrate education, we need to empower our girls, boys and women to be able to take care of themselves and to know what to do, even when they are faced with this kind of adversary and idleness. Because of course, with them being out of school, they are very idle. So it's very easy for them to get into these vices that get them pregnant and just change, the whole trajectory of their lives. So I think education is really one thing, and information sharing is one thing that we can really focus on, even as we continue dealing with the after effects of COVID-19.
Okay, well, as we celebrate this day, we acknowledge that indeed there are women who are succeeding. But then again, amid the success, there's so much struggle. What can we do to ease up or to make the ground friendlier for the women who are growing, the girls who are coming up, so that, historically they'd sit down and say the ones who are ahead of us really did something towards making it a favorable ground? Betty. Betty, did you hear me? We still are not able to hear Betty well. So back to you, Dorothy, and the question goes to you. Yes, we acknowledge the successes that we have, but we equally understand that they come along with a lot of struggles. How do we get off the struggles off the way? Because some of them are actually man-made, so to speak. Some of them are made by our very own selves. We keep talking of a scenario where girls, or women are their worst enemies and such.
Yes, I think, already we really do have structures in place that are geared towards providing opportunities for women. And I'll still go back and say that the lack of information on these opportunities is still a hindrance. I know we have different funding opportunities for women, women funds. We have a number of economic empowerment opportunities for women. But how many women, especially those that this kind of programs target, are even aware that this opportunity exists and how they can go about accessing funds or training to empower themselves and be economically viable? And so I still insist that we need to come up with frameworks that really integrate aspects of community education, community sensitization. We need to treat this information so that our women can access this information, can access these funds, can access this training, and can be able to really stand on their own 2 feet.
All right. Okay, on that note, let's try and fix Betty's audio during this break, and then we come back with more.
TV47, the home of untold stories. They say the way to the heart is through the stomach. This month of love, Throwdown shares with you those amazing food ideas for that candlelit dinner and picnic date. Learn those dining etiquette and avoid those embarrassing moments every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. What's the perfect way to kickstart your day in the morning? Well, apart from having a healthy breakfast, the Morning Cafe is all you need. We will inform you on what's happening on the roads, dive deeper. Agriculture being the engine of economic growth in Kenya. Richer Fields aims to educate, entertain, and take you round the world of rich fields when it comes to matters agriculture and agribusiness.
It's 800 shillings per kg. Where? Almost 100% profit.
They say the way to the heart is through the stomach. This month of love, Throwdown shares with you those amazing food ideas for that candlelit dinner and picnic date. Learn those dining etiquette and avoid those embarrassing moments every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. What's the perfect way to kickstart your day in the morning? Well, apart from TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back to the broadcast, still with me via Skype, Dorothy Okemore and Betty Adera, as we look at the progress that we've made as a people in regards to getting the women out there. But importantly, as we just focus on the theme of this year's Women's Day, that is women in leadership and equally achieving an equal future in COVID-19 world. And so this is what we'll be looking at. And so just to loop them in again, Betty, let's talk matters leadership. I mean, we do not even look at what has happened across Africa and across other parts of the world. It's been quite a hullabaloo right here in the country, and I'm sure you are right at the center of all this. What do you suppose will be done first to get us to that point where we'll acknowledge the importance of pushing the women out and, you know, to the top of the helm, getting them to the table without having to point fingers, without having to, you know, profile them, and, you know, without having to scare more women from actually getting these particular positions?
Thank you very much. And again, apologies for my internet challenges today. If I just tell a very quick story, just recently at our foundation office, I walked in because he thought the organization was being done well, they were feeling the impact in the community, and he wanted to come and just be part of it and thank the management for what it is that they were doing. But when he walked in, he met me. And as we were getting to know each other, he was asking to see the boss. Because in his mind, all this good work could only have been done by a man, by a man leading the organization. And shock on him when it dawned on him that it was actually me, you know, a woman. And, you know, I had to calm him down because he just couldn't believe it. According to him, still in this day and age, women should be in the kitchen. Women cannot be heads of anything. Women can be in the office, yes, but she should be cooking the tea or cleaning the office or arranging the files and things like that. And the more I spoke with this man, the more I realized just how deeply rooted the gender stereotypes are, you know, in our community around women and leadership. While I managed to speak to him and turn him into my #1 champion, you know, he represents a huge constituency of grassroots men, you know, where the families are, where the communities are. These are the men we are talking about. So there's a lot that still needs to be done for all of us today on a daily basis, constantly challenge, you know, the existing stereotypes against women that put us at the back of the room and not in the front of the room. Secondly, we need to think through ways in which we can role model for women. And we can also provide mentorship. It is one thing to be a leader. It is another to be a great and transformative leader. So that takes time and that takes work. We also need to figure out ways in which we can build the social skills of women to aspire for leadership positions in all fields. Yeah. There are skills such as confidence, public speaking, you know, great communication, people skills, and all the skills that are actually needed for any leader to thrive. And you find that women often don't have them. So we have to come out and figure out ways in which we can identify these women who want to aspire or who are already sitting in leadership positions and aspire, you know, for growth and build their capacities in that level. Back to role modeling, I challenge myself and thousands of other women out there who are already occupying leadership positions to come back and look back and make time to mentor the others who are coming after you, because that door was opened for you or you broke it open. It is open, so you need to keep it open, you know, for other women to also come in and pass through the same. Linda?
All right. Okay, well, an interesting one there, but just how much space is given to the women? And speaking of which, we are looking at this theme that speaks of achieving an equal future in COVID-19 world. At this time of COVID-19, Dorothy, we speak of the basics and how much the women have been considered in the fight, and equally, you know, having their interests being met, especially acknowledging the fact that a majority of the women have been on, you know, the frontline aspect. And, you know, most of the key jobs that have been affected have had women, you know, at the top, or, you know, at the cream of it all. And so, for instance, we've had a report that speaks of a scenario where, you know, the national dedicated COVID-19 task force teams across about 87 countries. That includes the EU member states and all that. About 85.2% were led by men. And look, we are talking of, you know, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world where all this task force, you know, a majority are men. How are they able to speak of the interests of the women? How possible is it for us to have a fair ground when we're looking at this kind of balance?
I think the impetus is on us women who already are occupying those spaces where we are able to interface and you know, sort of demand to be part of these spaces where such decisions are made, to actually take this a notch higher and make sure that we are sitting in some of these spaces. Because honestly, if we wait for, you know, anybody or men to hand some of these positions to us, I don't think it's going to happen. So I think it's upon us who are already in leadership, who are empowered, who are knowledgeable, and who even know what is happening, to, you know, propose ourselves and put ourselves in those spaces where we can be part and parcel of these committees or spaces where decisions are made. Mm-hmm. And when we get there, I think we also need to go down to the county level and empower other women, even those women that are running their community-based organizations or grassroots organizations, to also be able to be part of the county-led committees and forums where decisions around health and other aspects are made. Yeah. And this is something we particularly actively do. We normally build the capacity of community-based women-led organizations in the county level. And we make sure that any forum that we have that is inclusive of the policymakers, members of the county assembly, also has an equal representation of women grassroots organizations and women leaders. This is to make sure that even beyond that kind of engagement, these women, we already have opened doors for these women to continue engaging and interfacing with their leaders, and making sure that whatever decisions are made are inclusive of their voices. And of course, this is also a constitutional right for public participation, and for women particularly to be part and parcel of this, to engage, to be heard, and for their rights and their needs to be considered when decisions and policies and budgets are being put out there. So I think still the onus is on us women who are already in those spaces to hold the hands of other women and also fight for the right to be in these spaces without necessarily waiting for somebody to hand it out to us.
All right, these reports have been out here in the public domain. Closing our eyes, we can pinpoint the key things and the numerous challenges that girls have gone through and the women have gone through at this point of COVID-19. And still again on the theme, achieving an equal future in COVID-19 world. And that means gender equality must be at the heart of the post-pandemic recovery. How do we achieve that, one, as a country, before we even think of what plays out in the global fraternity? Betty?
Gender equality, as you say, sit at the center of everything. Everything women, everything girls. And gender equality, first and foremost, doesn't mean that now men are equal, women are equal to men. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. You know, and we function just like that. But it's sort of like more like equality in terms of opportunity, equality in terms of access to resources, access to education opportunities, access to finance, just equality in the way something in his life the girl should also add. And one way is to get there actually is more of like we kind of need to challenge the voice and agency of women. We need to strengthen that so that women actually have the voice and the agency to sit on all these boardroom decision-making spaces at national, county, and even community level. Any place where decision is being made, women need to be empowered to do that, right from grassroots level all the way to to the top. Another way to achieve an equal world is, again, to level the playing ground. We need to work even harder as we reflect on this International Women's Day, on ways in which we can even level better, the playing field, especially for girls and for women. We have to address sexual and gender-based violence. We have to address issues of access to credit, access to financial literacy. We have to address positive male engagement. We have to address the issues around structural barriers that keeps girls out of school. There is no way an opportunity will come with a minimum requirement of secondary education certification. A girl who dropped out of school in class 6 will not be able to compete for those kinds of opportunities. So these are some of the things that we are saying that except we bring them up, we talk about them, we address them sustainably, then we may still be a journey ahead. We may still be a while before we get to where we want to get, but while we appreciate that a lot of effort and work has been done and is achieving positive impact, there's still a lot more that needs to be done. We need to constantly be challenging the stereotype around women, especially in political leadership, is key, because political leadership is what drives every other sector, in this country. If political leadership is good, then everything else around that country or community, is going to be good. And women need to be in these places where all these decisions are being made.
All right, that's good. Dorothy, then how do we cement some of these policies that we come up with, that are meant to protect the girl child? How do we get, them to be incorporated in law or to be, followed to the latter? Because most of the times we talk of great policies, but when it comes to the aspect of implementation, it becomes a problem. And then how do we even have the confidence that even as a country, we are able to achieve this when we look at the downfalls that we've witnessed, especially with the laws that have been incorporated in the Constitution, yet have not been implemented as of now?
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of commitment, but specifically the policy that I even want to talk about is the school re-entry guideline.
Yes.
The Ministry of Education just reviewed and adapted this, I think about a month ago. Mm-hmm. And I think these are very critical guidelines, especially when you're looking at the post-COVID era, where we have seen the statistics. There are so many girls that have gotten pregnant because they've been out of school, they've been idle, they've been home for so long. And so just making sure that this particular policy is implemented to the letter, that no girl is disenfranchised, no girl is made to feel inferior, and no girl is denied access to rejoin school even after they've given birth, I think is very, very, very important. And so I think even as this policy has been rolled out nationally, I really hope that there are mechanisms that have been put in place to make sure that this guideline is actually trickled down to the county level. It is domesticated to address the specific needs of these counties, and it goes further and is disseminated within the schools. Because I remember even last year when we went to Narok, most of the school heads had not heard of the return to school policy. And so what good is it if a policy is in place and the people that are supposed to implement it do not even know of its existence or what the provisions of it are? So I really would encourage the stakeholders and the people who are in charge of this to make sure that this time around the re-entry guidelines are fully followed, they are fully understood, and the school heads are able to really make sure that all girls go back to school and they're able to complete their education. And so I think the bigger picture is making sure that even as we develop policies, we are also looking at the implementation framework. We are able to track, we are able to monitor, we are able to take stock of how that policy is being implemented and what the bottlenecks are and what the mitigating factors are, to make sure that we are not just making policies for the sake of making them, but we actually have the intention to make sure that they are implemented and adapted and reviewed where necessary.
Before I come to Betty, this is something that is quite of a challenge, where there's always that feeling of imposter syndrome. In most cases, women do not have that belief that they deserve. Some of them doubt how valuable they are, how powerful and deserving they are. Out of all these policies that we speak about, out of all these things that we speak of in terms of the likes of education and all that, do you suppose they would come in handy to get the women, first of all, to develop that belief in themselves so that they can go out and be what it is that they would love to be? Dorothy?
Absolutely, absolutely correct. And one of the things we've been saying is that I'm sure you've heard of the youth-friendly corners and youth-friendly centers. I think what we are saying is that we need these spaces to be fully integrated so that they're not just places where young people can go and hang out, but they're spaces where women and girls can be empowered, they can be educated, they can develop life skills. We can have mentors talking to them and, making them confident in the fact that they are able and they can become anything they want to become, and that we can remove the gender stereotypes and the cultural beliefs that are deeply entrenched that make even girls themselves feel disenfranchised and not able to take up the spaces that are there. Mm-hmm. And so we all have a role to play in making sure that our girls know that they are worthy and they are able and they can become anything they want to become. Mm-hmm. And we need to be able to provide this information in the spaces that are really available within the community setting itself, including even schools. I don't think anything stops us from having school-based programs where we are able to talk and mentor these girls and make sure that from a young age they know that they can really achieve anything they put their mind to.
Mm-hmm. All right, incredible. Yeah. Betty, I know you are in a capacity to react to this, and I'd love for you to tell us what is your take on the BBI, especially, when we're talking about women right here, because then these are policies that we discussed that seek to create a favorable space for the women, for the girl in the country.
Thank you very much. Now, the BBI is one of the best things that are going to happen to women and girls in this country if it gets passed the referendum and actually implemented into law. BBI is for women. BBI is for the girl. Among other things, BBI makes provisions, especially for women in political leadership, expanded spaces for them, attempting to address the 2/3 gender rule with clear considerations of our context and what is actually doable. And we are seeing that efforts are being made to ensure parity, especially at the Senate, and also bringing the burden back to the political parties to ensure that their party lists or their list of contestants or aspirants, if you like, adheres to the 2/3 gender rule. So we want to see a situation where more women, if more women, aspire to vie and actually vie, the likelihood of more women to be elected into gubernatorial, into MCA positions, into member of parliament positions is actually much higher now than we have seen in the past in our country. Secondly, the BBI also is clear about matters to do with keeping girls in school, access to education, and ensuring that they are retained in school and they are transitioning, the right way from one level of education to another. It is actually going to engrave the provision of sanitary products to girls in school, so that becomes not at the whims of a leader to decide to do or not to do, but it becomes part of the education system. Mm-hmm. We are looking at, thirdly, we are looking at the proposed ward fund that would come up to the ward level under the guidance and leadership of the elected MCA of that particular ward. Look, who is in the ward? That is the from the family level to community, we go to the ward. So if you're looking for women, they are in the wards. If you're looking for this grassroots mother, she is in the ward. So we're looking at a fund that is being brought as closest as possible to her, for her to be able to access credit, to access information, to access business or entrepreneurship training, to access mentorship, to access networking, to access all these things that our women at grassroots level actually need. So there's a lot of things in there, you know, for women in this country. And also the proposed additional constituencies would mean what? If a constituency is being added, it means that there's an extra chance for a woman to vie for MP position in that particular newly created constituency.
Okay.
And I want to believe that a constituency is coming in, the wards are also being divided as well. The wards can't remain the same if constituencies are, you know, being divided by way of.
All right, we got a hitch there anyway. As we come to a close, I think I'll allow Dorothy first to give us her parting shots, but importantly, a chance also to celebrate this women or this woman in our life that she would want to look at and, you know, say that indeed you have done well and, you know, you'd wish to have more that are like this particular woman.
Yeah, I think my parting shot is that I think we have made quite a number of strides in terms of inclusivity of women and providing equal opportunity. And of course, this has been done through different policies and frameworks. My parting shot is always that we need to find mechanisms in which we ensure these policies are implemented and we are able to track the progress and take stock of what has worked and what hasn't worked. Even as we talk about BBI and wait for it to be implemented, because it will be. I think it's important for us to also have a committee that looks at the implementation of BBI.
Yep.
You know, just take stock of what is working, what is not working, and readjust accordingly. You know, I don't think we need to sit with a policy that is not working when we've already established it's not working for the majority of the people that it was intended for. I think I would like to celebrate you, Linda, to be honest.
Thank you.
I think you Robert TV 47. I watch your shows all the time, and you're a powerhouse, and you bring, you know, very good guests, and you're able to really ask the important and pertinent questions. Of course, I'd like to celebrate my mother, you know, because she made me what I am today, and she worked very hard to make sure that we are all able to access the opportunities that we are talking about today.
Right.
And of course, celebrate all women and girls out there who are working very hard every single day to make sure that their children and their family are able to live a happy and comfortable and fulfilled life.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Thank you so much. That caught me by surprise, but I'm humbled. And I might say that I equally celebrate my guests. I think I started celebrating you even before you had tuned in, you know, or before you were on. And so, Betty, are we able to get Betty? Well, fortunately, we're not, unfortunately that is, we're not able to get a hold of her, but all the same, I'm sure we've gotten the key points. It's a conversation that goes on. It's not, you know, one that we limit to, you know, those moments when we celebrate the women, we celebrate the mothers. We keep saying that we'll have these conversations as much as it takes for us to get a level playing ground. And like Dorothy started by saying, it shouldn't be a scenario where it appears as though we are here on a battle, you know, against the men. It should be something that we work on together, and together we make it better as a people. Dorothy, asante sana. That's where we close it at. Thank you so much also, Betty Adera, for your time and for the great insights. I celebrate you. I celebrate every other woman out there, and I equally celebrate my mom and my sisters and every other person. We say asante sana in our own special and small ways. We have managed to make it a good place for us. And so in that case, it is worth celebrating as we make these baby steps. We certainly are going to be there. So we'll leave you with this message of inspiration. And of course, as we celebrate the women, as we say, Happy International Women's Day. My name is Linda Alela. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing as I get to see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye.
Life will be much easier when we finally understand which hands to shake and which ones to hold.